welcome on in. This is Sins, and I'm here with the Doctor. Good afternoon, Doctor.
Good afternoon, SomeWeirdSins. How's it going?
Pretty good. How have you been?
Excellent, excellent. I have uh, been playing a little Battle Brothers this year after not playing last year. But my latest campaign, I got to the point where I got bored, and that's how I roll. But Twitch has all these ads. Man, I have not been on Twitch in so long. I did not know they had this many ads.
Yes,
But
it's a different Twitch than last time I was really streaming. They've probably maybe tripled the amount of ads, so just
uh,
a little different venue now.
How unfortunate. But how have you been doing, Sins?
I am good. I'm good. I haven't played a lot of Battle Brothers lately. I still kind of I played the game so much, but I still kind of engage the community here and there. And I kind of put this perk list together just for fun, to start some conversations, just to throw it in the world and see what came back. And thanks for reaching out and saying, "Hey, let's talk about this."
Yeah, I still do read the Battle Brothers Reddit almost every day. I almost never respond, but I do like to see what folks are writing about. And a few weeks ago, or maybe I think it was a few weeks ago. Anyway, you created. Oh no, there's another cat. Ah, there's a cat. I thought. Okay, well, it's fine. It's fine. It's all fine. Anyway, there was a Reddit post that you created about tier list for 2026 for expert level play. And I looked at the tier list and I thought, yeah, I agree with pretty much all of your decisions. And it's fun to consider why we would both agree on most of the picks. I don't know, I agree with every single pick, but um, you know, it's not. If we all agreed on every single thing, the game would be too boring. It wouldn't. It would be
Yeah,
too uninteresting. So it's good to have some differences. One other thought I had was it is very important to call out in this tier list that this first paragraph, which nobody I'm sure reads, is very important because it says this assumes you're playing on ELI Expert Expert Low Iron Man with a random seed. The power perks also changes as your skill level increases. Absolutely. The perks on each tier are not in any particular order. Yep. Origin affect this a bit. I don't really care or think about that, but probably a little bit. So yeah, I may have a skew towards hardest origin, but the most important point of this is I think, at least the way I play these days, I just take whatever brothers are given. In fact, that was literally my latest series, and then try to make them useful, even going all the way to level 11. And whereas I think you have a similar concept, is that
yeah, yeah,
so? Am
yeah.
I? Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I find great satisfaction personally from taking like that random rat catcher 52 attack and no stars and 2 defense and 110 initiative, turning him into something useful. Like that
Hmm.
to me is far more interesting than taking those uber elite brothers with this 65 attack and 3 stars in melee. Like, you can't fail. Like, whatever you do, that brother is going to be strong because stats are so strong in this game. In fact, I had in my latest run, there was a brother exactly like that who had just absolutely busted. It was a Disown Noble of all backgrounds, but it was a dexterous Disown Noble, like stars in all the right places. He was easily like Pro. So you can't really go wrong with a brother like that. But with the brothers who are, let's say, average, the perks make a great difference in
Hmm.
how they perform. And so perhaps without
Yeah.
further ado, why don't we just I'm going to switch back to the on my screen the perk list because I had Reddit open, and why don't we just go through the I should define what you mean because there are some the definitions of these perks are pretty important too. So you just define
Oh,
S tier as these perks provide game-changing power spikes, and playing without them would be dramatically harder. I agree. They are also taken very commonly. So why don't you lead us off with the S tier perks?
yeah. So maybe before we hop into that, quick introduction, because both of us have not been super active in the community the last 3, 4 years. So maybe to tell you guys a bit about myself. Again, I played this game a lot. Between about 3 and 5 years ago, I was maybe the usually the most viewed on Twitch. Did a bunch of cool stuff. I was never really big in speedrunning for long. A little bit when speedrunning was younger, I did some speedruns. Mostly I focused on win streaks. Um, I focused on educational content, and maybe more on that later. And then I also focused a lot later on. I did a lot of most of the highest level play didn't have any set goal. I just played the game like let's clear 90% of the map with Crash Brothers and then do a legendary. So there's just different goals. At that point, kind of, I was the only really active, creator at that level, so there wasn't really a reason to do set challenges. And then Deductor, you guys may not be familiar with him. If you ask most like high school players who their favorite player is, we're all going to answer Deductor. Everyone, and I'll tell you why. So for people like me, they're trying to like, I was like, into like being a Twitch partner, which is fun. You have to kind of make some compromises to make content. Deductor did none of that. He just played the game close to perfectly. Never any set goals. Just hey, here's my guys.
Oh, there's some sort of
Hey, I'm ahead
audio.
of the curve. I'm gonna like role play a sergeant.
I think the
So
audio is fine again. Okay, it's all good.
okay, so yeah, so if you guys watch Deductor, he's got a YouTube channel. If you want to see really careful, really high level play geared towards what experts want to watch, I'd highly recommend his channels. He's not going to have those like I'm trying to set a speed run record, I'm trying to set a win streak record. That's not how he rolls. Boots up the game, plays, and plays phenomenally. So I highly recommend checking out how Deductor thinks about the game for kind of a maybe more unique take than you're going to find on streaming platforms. Have to make compromises for the audience. And circling back to that, Deductor and I did a co-op run. Was it 4 years ago now? Right?
Many years. That was so much fun. I love that co-op run.
That was great. And that was kind of like a turning point in the type of content I created. Before then, I was trying to like have the maximum size audience you can get for Twitch. And so most of my content was based around helping intermediate players learn the game. It was very educational. I wasn't trying to play like the best possible. I was trying to play, hey, if you know how this game works, if you kind of copy this play style, you can go and you can have good runs. We're gonna like clear a bunch of legendaries by day 150, 200. We're gonna play fast. The tactics aren't gonna be great. We're not gonna do a lot of thinking. We're just gonna smash buttons and clear the game. And this is like a stepping stone for you to be able to actually play the game and not just constantly feed and then go from there. And kind of after Deductor and I did this run, we took probably like 80 hours to play 40 days or something. I was like, hey, this would be a lot more fun if I actually played the game well instead of focused on educational content. And then I kind of changed the type of content I create.
That's awesome. I didn't know
Yeah.
that that run had such a strong influence on the type of content you made. I only ever make the same type of content in a way because streaming you have to do a schedule, and I'm not able to commit to a set schedule, so I just sort of play randomly. I just like to think about the tactical battles. And
Mm-hmm.
I will say I did do a series this year, but it's not at the same level. Like my strongest series by far was the Anonymous. Like I was trying super, super hard in that series. Uh, and then the Varangian Guard, the next one, I didn't actually explain what I did, but I feel like played extremely well. There were some battles that were like I didn't explain what I did, but if you go watch, they are like works of art. I know this is
Mm-hmm.
super
Okay.
arrogant, but they were works of art.
I
But
believe it.
the latest series, I can feel it. I'm not up. I don't have the same like focus or concentration. I think the skill is still there
Mhm.
somewhere. I just can't like concentrate as strongly as I used to. And so I feel like I'm an old sword master at this point. Like still, I still
Nimble.
understand things, but I'm just not as fast. I'm not quite the same anymore. But I can still talk about perks. Talking is something I can still
Yeah,
do.
yeah. I think it would take me a warm up run or two to kind of play at my best as well. I'm sure with that, either of us would still do just fine. I guess I should kind of clarify what I mean by expert level play. I don't just mean expert difficulty. I mean, this is kind of the way, and I tried to generalize here, the best 20 or 30 players in the world think about the game. I tried to incorporate different play styles. I think it's impossible to not kind of bias my own. I try to include play styles from people like Deductor, Slurgy, Feeding Friendly, Sergey, Kern Dude. I watch content from Russian language creators, so people like Hopeless, and obviously Sergey as well. And there's a pretty cool Chinese community that has content on Billy with a little different take on the game. And I tried to kind of watch some of that content as well and figure out what they're doing. So I'm kind of trying to incorporate how it seems like all the best players, different approaches are all gonna vary, but like what's in common, what are different ways to approach the game. So with that being said, if you look at this list and it sounds weird to you, your first gut reaction is gonna be, hey, the Sins and Deductors guys, those guys are dinosaurs, they're wrong, and I'm right. And maybe that's true. Uh, or
No, no, the
maybe
dinosaurs are
you should
right.
question your
The
dinosaurs
dinosaurs
are
are
right,
right.
yeah. But maybe you should question your own paradigm, because the reason why these perks are so different than what you see like a variety streamer playing with this game is the whole paradigm for the way you think about and approach the game is going to keep shifting as you get better. And so rather than like pushing back, it's like, hey, this looks weird. I would challenge you to ask yourself, check that first gut reaction to this is wrong. And instead, take the moment to ask yourself, hey, why do the best handful of players think about the game so differently than I do? And kind of, do I care about that and wanting to like work and look at the game in a more deep way? Or do I just want to run around and mash buttons and blow stuff up, which is valid, right? Which is valid. So, um,
I
you want
agree.
to kind of go over? Hmm?
I was just going to add, I don't think there's any wrong way to play. If you just want to sort of farm the game for hundreds of days and equip all your brothers with legendary gear or famed gear, I should say, not like it's different. Uh,
Yeah.
but but like you can do whatever you want and however you want to enjoy the game. That's great. More people play and buy this game, the better.
Yeah.
But we are in thinking of the gaming sort of like if they're like the perfect game in my mind. If I were a billionaire, I would just like hire Overhype to redo their game a little bit to be a more like Slay the Spire, some sort of
I
a
agree.
run based game rather than a complete open world where you have infinite time to do anything you want. Like a mode where there's a time limit and some sort of random final challenge would be just the
Yeah,
greatest possible thing.
I agree. Yeah, and that's the main thing that kind of separates this game from Slay the Spire is this player are locked into a constant increase in difficulty, and in Battle Brothers you have to choose that. And kind of segueing to that, when we're looking at the game, at least when I'm looking at the game, I should just speak for myself. What I'm thinking of here is the difference between the best players and like the people that are just good at the game. I'm thinking about how to use the first 12 brothers I get. I don't want to train two waves of brothers. I don't have to keep hanging out in your town and re-rolling. Uh, how to make them work, how to use their unique strengths and weaknesses to build a team that works together. How to keep these brothers viable in the late game by snowballing and playing smart using good builds, and how to have perks and builds that beat the RNG. Because typically, if you or I, if one of our runs blows up, it's because we took a hard fight and got super unlucky. There's perks that we could take to kind of counteract that. Is that kind of mesh with your thinking?
Yeah, that's pretty much how I play as well. I just want to do the maximum number of fights in as short of time, in-game time as possible, which translates to, at least for me, I play extremely slowly. So like 80 hours for 40 in-game days, that sounds about right for me.
Yeah.
And I just enjoyed the tactical puzzles the most in this game, because I guess another way you can think about the exit level play is like, if given the same fight, an expert could come out of it not only with like relatively little damage, like low hit point or armor or damage, or like no injuries, but you also can get some of the loot. Like maybe there's one piece of armor you really want, and the expert's able to do all of that and not take damage. Whereas,
Hmm.
players who are not as experienced will probably still win, but they probably would not be able to achieve all of those objectives, or they might take more damage or injuries. And if you consistently are able to do that over many, many fights, you will be able to snowball and outscale the game faster than it can scale. Then at that point, you just do whatever you want.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And so we kind of talked a little bit about what S tier meant, and just to refresh you guys, absolute game-changing perks. If you had like you're not able to take this perk type run, the game would be a lot harder. A tier, I mean, these are some of the stronger perks in the game. They're perks that are common or essential for really good builds, and they're very high impact. Like you could do a challenge run without one of these, and it'd probably be fine, but you'd have to really adapt and play around it. And then you want to cover like the B and C tier.
Sure. The B tier is perks that are essential for builds you might want one or two per run. Playing without these perks would limit some tactical options, make it hard to maximize the value of mediocre bros through specialization. The C tier is playing without these perks would have very little impact. It's possible that these perks go unpicking a run, and an expert player is attempting to optimize. Many of these perks fall off in value as the player's ability to scale and position improves. And then D
And
tier,
the
might as well finish that one off.
Yeah, go ahead.
They're just bad perks, like perks that are pretty much useless.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. And I don't think the list is perfect. Even if I did it again, I'd do it a little differently. So maybe we move stuff around. Maybe kind of as we go, we can also put perks in order per tier, just to kind of help drive some conversation. Without being perfect, it's never going to be perfect, but I think as we have this conversation, I expect to kind of move a couple things around here or there.
All right, do you want to lead us off with Nimble?
Yeah, Nimble. So I think if there were an S plus tier, Nimble would be the only perk in it.
Yes, I agree.
Um,
Nimble is, in my opinion, the single best perk in the game, period. Not even close.
and this is something that there's a lot of reasons why that at first blush you might not think about. So the first thing I encourage people, if you had a weird reaction to that, is don't think about the game at level 11. If you've played well, the game is over before you hit level 11. You're well into your victory lap by then. And so what Nimble does is it lets you scale really fast, really early, get ahead of the curve, and gain a lot of power. That's like piece one. Piece two is a lot of the other perks that are strong early are going to synergize in a Nimble build. Things like 9 lives and dodge. You're going to want to take those on Nimble brothers, and they're really strong early in any build. So even before that level 7 Nimble spike, you've already gotten ahead of the curve by maybe taking dodge and 9 lives. And then even late game, most of your brothers want to be Nimble because it gives you more lines of play to use initiative, to use fatigue. And then another pretty important point is heavy armor is a valuable resource, right? So Nimble lets us take hard fights before we have heavy armor. And if you watch like me or Deductor do a run, we'll have a pretty good chunk of extra Nimble armors fully repaired in our inventory, and we'll just rotate them every fight. You're not going into fights with like your armor broken. Every single fight, you're just swapping out your armor and going with full armor. And so Battleforge really doesn't let you do that until far after you've won the game. Like you're not going to have 10 extra Battleforge armors in your inventory to go into every fight with them perfect. It's never going to happen. Any more thoughts on Nimble there, Deductor?
Yes, a couple more comments. If you So in terms of survivability, Battleforge is objectively better if you have especially good fame armor. However, neither one of us has the patience to farm like 200, 300 days to get like 12 brothers with 300 plus armor. And I'm not talking about like the 300 armor. That we could probably both get a full set of, I don't know, 100 something days. It's not that hard to get those armor. I'm talking about the super heavy
Yeah,
famed armor. That is like you might not even find that stuff by the end of like 200 days or whatnot. The game just might not give it to you. So in the
yeah,
hypothetical world, Battleforge is better, but in a practical sense, the way we play, Nimble is just is far more accessible. Like we can
right.
usually get it by day 30, 40 ish.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, some origins even day 2025 if you're playing like um, Hogger origin, let's say, or like Oath Takers or Poachers, the easier origins.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah,
You can
yeah, like maybe like yeah, some harder
Nimble.
origins like yeah, 30, 35 on the hard ones.
Yeah, so Nimble is just available very early. A couple other thoughts. Nimble is also good because reduces injuries. Like before Nimble, every time I see crossbow marksman, I'm like, just don't double tap a brother in the head because there's I can't defend against that. There's nothing I can do. After Nimble, I'm like, yes, you shot me in the head. Please, may I have another? Let's just keep doing that. It's so fun to watch them like shoot you and do like nothing.
Right.
There's just a massive world of difference. Also, Nimble often will lower the amount of hit point damage you take to below 15, so you don't proc morale
Right.
checks. Also, absolutely massive. Like the difference before and after Nimble is so noticeable that it's just like uh, I just don't know what else to say except like this is the best perk in the game for all of these reasons, and it's impossible for like an expert player to not think Nimble is the best perk in the game, or maybe like second best or something.
Agreed. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe some people think second or third best. A couple more notes. There's a couple different ways to use Nimble Forge. Um, the Giga famed armors, I think neither of us care too much about on our time scaling. Another one is like, and I do this occasionally. If you're ahead of curve, but you don't have a forged armor yet, like you can still take Nimble on a guy you want to make forged, just so he doesn't die until you get the armor. And yeah, you kind of waste a perk, but that's the brother you can send him into an easy fight with Raider gear while you repair his hard armor. In addition to like having that early game snowball, like, hey, my god brother is not gonna die. I got Nimble day 25, and I don't want to buy that 15k forged armor until day 50. And the average seed has 1.2 battle forged armors on it. So if you clear every single camp on the entire seed on a random seed, you're gonna get 1.2 battle forged armors. Like you're not gonna find it in camps on a random seed in the time frame you need to get it in.
I love that point you made about the Nimble plus take Nimble first and then take Battleforge. I literally did exactly that on that super dishonorable named after a viewer
Mhm.
Crisis King, and I did Nimble first, and then I had him fight the Madman. I gave him Battleforge just for that one fight, and he came out of it with 2 hit points. And so
Yeah,
Battleforge actually saved his life there. Uh,
yeah,
and so like you can combine them. There's no reason not to like do things like that.
yeah, yeah. You can find a lot of value in the perk there, a lot of different ways. So, if you want to lead us and start us off with your thoughts on fast adaptation, then I'll kind of respond to that one.
Yes. So fast adaptation. Why this for the longest time it wasn't considered a good perk. Maybe like a usable perk that you would take early game. And in some ways, that is still true. However, fast adaptation is uh, the perk that will help you snowball by far the hardest. Whenever I early game, I get a trash bro or even like a pretty good bro. and my mind is this guy is he's not going to be the sergeant. He's not going to be some sort of tank. He's almost certainly going to get fast adaptation unless his stats are so unbelievably good. You're not going to like you might get like one or two of those guys and you could do special things with them. Everyone else, I just give fast adaptation. And then the guy with 52 attack can actually hit, and they hit quite consistently. And when you hit enemies and they kill them before they can kill you, that is the best way to reduce damage. Fast adaptation is amazing for it. It's also there are certain fights where you have to land hits. Like the best example would be mace and stun, mace mastery and stunning. Like sometimes the one job of your one brother is to stun like that fallen hero, or stun that fallen hero is like the best early game, or stun a hex or something like that.
Yeah.
You just need that one hit, and you won the fight. And fast adaptation helps you achieve that consistently, and that has, in my mind, tremendous value.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else to add?
In a way, it's best with one-handed weapons, but even two-handers can benefit from it. Although it's not my favorite choice, but it can still be good, especially if your two-hander has like arm, like quick hands into a reach weapon of some sort. So you like the more options you have to attack with, the better fast adaptation is. And I think we, or the expert players, are usually very good at positioning such a way that every brother gets to do some sort of attack.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Yes, we talk about using trash bros to be late game content. I got an example here, a screenshot of one at least. You can see our friend Egon here. This is after Monolith. I actually I don't think I brought this guy into Monolith, but I always have 2 or 3 guys like this in my final 12. He got 2 kills a day, and at level 11, after gifted, he has 70 attack and 25 defense. There aren't a lot of people that are going to use these kind of guys to clear the game. But if you play well and build well, you can carry a couple of these guys. Like you don't have to go all out and train some 3-star attack hedge knight to do this job. And you can see he's got fast adaptation, 9 lives, dodge. Like he's quick hands, gifted, Colossus, polearm, nimble, fearsome, and duelist. So, and the perks that really drive that are the fast adaptation, 9 lives, dodge. And I agree with everything you said about fast adaptation being the most important perk for snowballing. I'm going to add a couple more things in. As an accuracy perk, it's not conditional on positioning, right? You don't have to play your team around trying to generate value from Backstabber. You can play your team on other variables and let fast adaptation do the work. It has higher value for puncturing armors that natively have -15 to hit, because fast adaptation gives more melee attack the lower your chance to hit is. It helps you fight small amounts of hard enemies earlier, because again, the more defense the enemy has, the more attack you get. That early, brigand leader with a heater shield, the fast adaptation is going to put in a lot of work to being able to stun, puncture him down, or kill him outright if you have to. And then the other piece is we talked about beating RNG. So fast adaptation shores up your bad luck, right? Because anytime you miss, then you get a bonus to attack. So it does a really good job of preventing those fights where you just miss every attack for the first 2 rounds and then lose a brother or lose the run. And that's actually a really big part of why I think it's powerful, because again, if you're playing well, the biggest risk is a giant, 1 in 10,000 chance of RNG happening, during your win streak. And so if you have fast adaptation, that gets pretty rare. A couple more lines of play can open up for things like stun. You can go up to an enemy with like a shield mace brother, do a normal swing. If that normal swing connects, you just do another normal swing. you've probably done enough damage to that zombie or nomad or whatever to just send a damage brother in. If that first attack misses, then you go for the stun with a +10 chance to hit. Now the enemy is disabled, you can still safely bring that damage brother into that position, relying on that stun. So a lot of extra tricks you can do, and similar with puncture, you can like stab, and if both hit, you just keep stabbing and try to just kill them outright. But if you step up to some guy and stab, miss. Well, now I have +20 for a puncture, and we'll just go for that. So a lot of extra lines of play you can use, and a lot of value for things like Greatsword, to where you're getting 3 attack rolls, 2 to 3 attack rolls. It does apply in the middle of the AOE. So anything that's generating 2 or more attack rolls a turn is going to be very high value. And the hybrids that rely on both attack and defense, FA is going to add to both those attack stats effectively. And so you kind of double dip by taking it on hybrids. Anything else to add, Deductor?
Not too fast adaptation, but can you go back to your Egon, that character? I just
Yeah,
wanted to show I love the build on this character. Fashion, I might do the fashion a little differently, but
yeah, me
the
too.
build
Yeah.
is amazing. Like just notice the synergies. Like there's the quick hands with the polearm mastery, so you can swing the polearm and swing the sword, or you can double swing a sword, or this character is not showing it, but you could, instead of the dagger, equipped a shield for certain fights. This character has
Mhm.
25 base defense, so heater shield plus 20 with the
Yeah.
dodge. That's like 50
Mhm.
defense in the right situation. You
Yeah.
could pole arm and then swap to your shield, and then like next turn wait, and then go back to the pole arm. Like there's so many things you could do with a character like this. It's very
Yeah.
exciting. I just want to say.
And the reason why we skipped Pathfinder is because this particular map, I think we cleared every camp in the snow really early, like day 35, 40ish. We cleared all the barbarian camps out. So we were just playing on plains the whole game. We just really didn't need Pathfinder. We cleared the desert maybe like day 10 to 25, 30, and then we hit the tundra, and then we were just looking for monolith at that point. And so Pathfinder was not, kind of unique to skip it, but this run we did on this guy. And then I guess I'll start off with 9 lives, and then we can kind of do that where we take turns starting off and then responding.
Yeah,
Um,
why don't you start 9 lives and I'll do Colossus?
yeah, so 9 lives is much better than everyone gives it credit for, including the people that love it. And there's a lot of reasons why. And again, he's become more apparent kind of the more you care about cramming a ton of fights in. So first of all, what 9 lives does, since I think don't even really know anymore, is when you get a hit that would kill you, it gives you between 10 and 15 HP. It clears any sort of bleed or poison effect, not related to injuries, but normal bleeds and poisons. And it gives you 15 initiative, I think it's 15 resolve, 15 attack, and 15 defense until your next turn. It makes it pretty unlikely that you're going to die, even if you get a morale check or 2 on those breaks. That's a lot of defense and acting early in the round. So it gives you time to kind of bail the brother out from bad luck. So common criticism of 9 lives is if you put a brother there and 9 lives trigger, you shouldn't have put him there. That's total nonsense, right? When you think about what kind of plays you want to make, you want to look at all of the possible outcomes and how likely they are. Just like when you're playing a poker game and you're betting, you're thinking, okay, what's the next card that could come up? What does that give me in my hand? And you're betting based on the whole array of outcomes that could happen. What 9 lives does is it eliminates that entire worst case scenario. Like that actually just cannot happen. Like I'm gonna step up to this orc berserker and he's gonna one shot me. Well, I have 9 lives. That can't happen. That changes the way you can make every single decision in the game. You can basically make every single micro decision slightly more aggressively. This gives you more surround bonuses, more morale checks, and makes your fights a lot cleaner. And protects your high value guys to dying from a very unlikely chain of RNG. At a more macro level, it lets you take fights when you're low HP. You take a hard fight, you have a guy on 7 HP. Well, 7 HP and 9 lives, he's good for 2 hits. I can still send him in to attack. I don't need to worry that he's going to get one shot by some enemy with even a guy with a wooden mallet you can send him against. Because he's good for 2 hits at least, right? And then similarly, one of the worst things that can happen when you're trying to snowball is losing level 4 to 6 brother. If you start taking 9 lives on most of your team, I'm going to say between level 4 and 6, and you prevent those 1 or 2 losses per run where you're like, this close to Nimble, and then all of a sudden you lose 1 or 2 frontliners in a hard fight, and then you're step back 10, 15 days. You almost like need to run back to town, hire again. Now your team is level 5 and you have a level 1 guy in the back line you're trying to train with a polearm. You just can't progress your team then. You have to like take a step back in the fights you're taking. And 9 lives preventing those 1 or 2 deaths per run. Even if 9 lives triggers twice, if you take it on 10 people and it triggers twice, it was still probably a good investment for the strategy reasons we discussed earlier, as well as that tempo loss from losing those mid-low level brothers as you're trying to like get that snowball accelerated. Anything you have to add to that, Deductor?
I pretty much agree with all of it. I've taken quite a bit of 9 lives on my most recent run. I've been liking 9 lives more and more. I think it is like they're both tier 1, 9 lives and Colossus, and I think 9 lives is the stronger overall survivability perk. And the most decisive factor in my mind is what you said about how for a fact that brother with 9 lives cannot get one shot by the it's the information, in my opinion, is even more valuable than procking it. I agree. You don't really want to proc it, and if you do proc it, the effect is good. But you don't get value out of 9 lives by procking it. You get value out of it from the information of knowing this brother can literally not die in this situation, so the move I make is 100% safe. Because enemies, they're not guaranteed to hit; they could miss. So when they miss, and you still have that information, the value just shoots up. It's an information perk, and strong players like can use that information in an advantageous way. There's someone
Agreed.
questioning whether fast adaptation is S tier. Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like the S tier here, you could add 1 or 2 perks to it. You could take a couple, maybe you could take Fearsome away. We'll talk about that later. But the Nimble 9 fast Colossus, I think they're pretty hard to argue for like a good player. Yeah, and you're gonna go on Colossus whenever you're kind of finished with 9 lives.
Yeah, so let's move on to Colossus. Um, Colossus, also tier 1 perk, very simple effect, plus 25% hit points, but 25% hit points is a lot.
Yeah.
Especially for brother starts out with good hit points, like 60, 70 hit points, and then you keep leveling up hit points. Oof, you can get brothers with like 120 plus hit points by game. And if you have something like Nimble, they're practically unkillable. The Another really strong effect of Colossus, especially early game, is by increasing your hit points, you reduce the threshold for injuries. So your brothers are far less likely to take injuries, which now a lot of injuries, they don't matter. Like the ones, some reduce fatigue a little bit, whatever. Others like reduce a small amount of initiative, whatever. If your brother gets like reduced melee attack, you can always give them a shield and have them tank. Or if they get reduced defense, give them a polearm and have them attack from the back. Like there are ways to work around most injuries, but they're still annoying. And you can sometimes get a really bad injury that makes your brother very hard to use. However, the injuries, even the minor injuries, there are certain enemies that have Executioner. Big one being Brigand Raiders. Like they all have Executioner, and you like that plus 20% damage is very dangerous to you. And Colossus, by avoiding, helping you avoid injuries, and not just it's kind of a damage reduction perk in that sense against many of your most common enemies early game. I think a lot of beasts also have Executioner. I might be wrong. I can't.
Yeah.
I don't.
Direwolves do, maybe hyenas.
Yeah,
brigands are the main one. You're brigands,
yeah.
reavers.
Yeah, those are by far the
Fun.
biggest examples, but they're chosen, but you're probably not finding those super early. Uh, but yeah, so that's the main thing with Colossus, reducing injuries. So what I like to think early game is if it's a very strong brother, I'll probably prioritize Colossus, or they have something insane like 70 hit points and 2 stars in HP.
Mhm.
Just have to go for that value. But if it's a strong brother who I want to try to keep around and try to be semi-safe, I tend to prioritize Colossus. Everyone else gets fast adaptation, and then next level they might get 9 lives, something like that.
Agreed. Yep. Yeah, and just to kind of snowball off that, I agree with everything you said. One other thing is resolve as well. So when you get hit and take HP damage, the difficulty of that resolve check is based on percentage of HP damage you took. One of the most common ways of losing earlier on is to resolve chain failures. The classes can help prevent a couple of those resolve checks and help mitigate against that. As well as you get in the late game and you want to fight, even in like heavy armor, you want to fight scary enemies. Things like crossbows, goblins with puncture, any enemy with a two-handed weapon, the big beasts like unholds. These mostly just go straight to the armor and go to your HP. And so even those big heavy armors, I would say actually even more. It's more important to have high HP when you have big heavy armor to prevent those big injuries and prevent from getting killed straight through your armor. And in terms of the stat perk, like HP is a really good perk or a really good stat. Every brother needs HP. Every brother needs resolve. Obviously, different amounts based on the rolls. But Colossus just gives the most stats, like numerically, of any perk. And it gives a good stat too, so that makes it pretty hard to not rate S tier.
All
Any other
right.
thing to add on Colossus Deductor?
No, I don't think so. It also synergizes. I guess one last thing. It does synergize with Nimble, of course, the best perk in the game. But just because you have Nimble doesn't mean you need Colossus. I take all sorts of Nimble brother, and not just like the range backlines. Like I'll have melee guys with 60 hit points and 9 lives in Nimble. I don't feel comfortable without either Nimble or Colossus unless it's like a range. I do like all
In
my friend
9 or
members have,
Colossus, right?
yeah, one of those two.
Yeah. One or the other. And then often both, but not always. I agree. And sometimes, rarely, backliners, I would skip it. I think I'm a little more conservative than you in like taking defensive perks. Yeah, in general, most brothers are gonna have one. Some will have both, and very few will have neither. And you can answer that question from Game Viewing account if you want to answer that verbally, just so it's on record as well.
Oh, yes. So there's a question about is fast adaptation S tier assuming you're replacing your team before the late game legendary fights? The answer is no. It is because of fast adaptation that those early game trash bros are even usable in late game legendary fights. Now, be clear, if you're sending a team of, level 11 bros who do not have good stats in legendary fights, some of them are probably gonna die. In fact,
Yeah.
it's very hard to not die. Like the quality of bros is really, really important. And if you have strong bros, like you can just do whatever and you win. Whereas if you have weaker bros, perk selection becomes more important. And we're mostly discussing like weaker bros. Like fast adaptation is amazing on like those day one random hires where you can't control what you get and it turns anyone into someone who can hit.
Right. And so we're talking about expert players game viewing. We're talking about people that aren't replacing more than a couple brothers. You get your first 12, and maybe you rotate a couple out for like few chads you hire later, but we don't want to waste time. We don't need to or want to waste time training a full second wave.
All right, I think we do need to move on. We might address comments in a little bit, but why don't you go with Fearsome?
So Fearsome, um, I think it's I think it's in the right place here. The Fearsome you're taking for a big power spike at either level 8 or 9. And the reason why it's S tier is because most of your, I'm gonna say, call it the mid-late game, like level 8 to level 11. I'm gonna call the mid-late, that's the mid-late game. Almost all the contested fights you're taking at that stage are against living things. They're mostly worried about orcs and goblins, maybe some big nomad fights. Typically, at that point in the game, we're not going to be in the south. I wouldn't think too much about nomads. Maybe noble armies we decide to attack. Maybe some giant brigand camps. But for the most part, orcs and chosen, and goblins as well. And Fearsome is just best in slot against these fights. When you're at that level, and given that you're an expert player, the undead and ancient dead fights, they're just free fights, guys. You're just you don't even need that perk. You could take bullseye on your melee guys and still crush those fights, right? Those are fights you care about at level 4, 5, 6. Ancient dead fights outside of legendaries are mostly pretty easy. There's a couple times along the curve when they're not free, but we don't care that this is a dead perk and things like zombie fights because we don't need a perk in that fight. So this is and the Fearsome does a lot more than people assume. So the first thing it does is when you do less than 15 damage, you still cause a resolve check. The second thing it does is that resolve check is much harder to pass. And then the main important thing, especially when the fights get big, is every time you send an enemy to fleeing, the entire enemy squad gets a resolve check. And every time you kill an enemy, even one that's already fleeing, the entire enemy team gets another resolve check. So given a sufficient density of Fearsome on your team, the fights snowball really fast. You can't just look at how many additional procs Fearsome cause, because Fearsome is going to lower the enemy stats. It's going to make you hit more and your enemy miss more. It's going to have some effects on kind of the way the fight looks. And then it's kind of contagious, right? So like the first resolve check was because of Fearsome. Maybe the second one you didn't need Fearsome to cause it. Um, the perk, but you needed that first reduction. Because each morale reduction reduces the enemy's attack, defense, and resolve by 10%. So it ends up pushing the fights in your favor progressively more, and that effect is bigger the larger the fight is. So it's one of the reasons why late game Battle Brothers is not a thing, is because whether you're fighting 20 or 200 orcs, they're going to chain the 200 orcs are actually going to chain out faster than the 20 orcs because of the way the resolve snowball works.
All right.
Anything to add to that, Deductor?
Yes. So, I agree that Fearsome is an amazing perk, and it's because of all those living enemies, including if you choose to fight the southern armies. Fearsome is
Mm-hmm.
absolutely insane against the southern armies, like those conscripts, for example. Like in my latest run, I specifically did not take Fearsome on any brothers because I went
Mm-hmm.
full headhunter because it's too fun. That's the only way I can play now to watch those heads roll. But the difference between having Fearsome and not having Fearsome is so unbelievably huge. Like those conscript fights, I actually have to try really hard, and uh, there. I don't think I would have wiped any of them, but there are definitely fights where I could have lost many good bros, and partly because I didn't play very well. And then even when I did play extremely well, the fight was still very hard, and everybody took a lot of damage. With Fearsome, those conscripts would have just melted from the morale checks. Conscripts have Nimble, by the way, so a lot of my hits did not do more than 15 damage at the beginning. They did like 2 hit point
Mm-hmm.
damage, and Fearsome would have worked on all of that, and it would have
Yeah.
devastated their resolve. Conscripts also don't have a way to rally. So once you start getting
Yeah.
some of those morale checks proc, and then they start to mass route, you just get free wins.
Absolutely. Really strong with guns, really strong with obviously daggers. Um, and axes will proc Fearsome twice. Any 4 AP weapon, throwing, any of the duelist weapons, any AoE weapons, so like Bardiche, Greatsword, Handed Hammer, any of those where you're getting multiple procs. And if you have a fearsome strategy, it's still fine to take it on single target, single damage source weapons. You can take fearsome on a mace neutral or hammer neutral. That's maybe the weakest use case for it, but because it's a snowball perk and it's a win condition. Taking on those low value brothers is such a strong perk that you can take it in a low value situation and have it still be correct. What do you think about the order for these S tier perks? Do you think this is about correct? If you had to
Uh,
rank them in order?
if I had to rank them, yeah, that seems about right. Um, if I might be, so there are some perks where I don't quite agree with your ranking, and there's two from the A tier that I know we're gonna go out of order, but
Sure, we can do that.
yeah. So in fact, I'm curious, like which two in the A tier do you think I'm thinking might be an S? I think one of them you would know, but the other one might surprise you.
You can upgrade one and downgrade one, or are they both upgrades? They're
They're
both
both
downgrades.
upgrades,
Oh,
but
I
they're
think
both
dodge
like
could be enough here.
okay, interesting. That's not what I was thinking of, but okay.
Duelist, maybe?
Okay, so I guess we're quite different in our thoughts. Is neither one of those. So my thoughts are Indom, and it's specifically one Indom, not more than
Hmm.
one. Like minimum of one Indom is S tier because it lets you fight so many things very safely.
Yeah.
Um, and
But
the
I
other,
agree with that point. I'm trying to. The list is based off both power and frequency of pick. Indom is there
oh,
when we
that's
need one. Yeah. So I think
that's
I
a good
agree with you in
point.
principle, but as a one of, absolutely, yeah. And your second one, sorry for interrupting you.
It's a Mace Mastery, and it's specifically one or two early game. I always try to make one of my first brothers a mace expert uh, because that 100% guaranteed stun makes a
Mhm.
lot of fights super safe. Like you have a fallen hero with the great axe, oh, stun it. Brigand leader with a great axe. Okay, well, I can now get the armor by stunning it. Hex, okay, stun it.
Mhm.
Um, Assassin, stun it.
Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
so many uses for that one brother or two. Oh, Necro Savants.
Yeah.
I still remember in my Renjingar series when my brothers were like levels, I think 6 to 8 ish. I came across multiple of those like 8 to 10 Necro Savant camps because I had two Mace experts and nets.
Mhm.
I was able to like do those barely taking any damage. And I remember there was like even a Reddit post around that time, like, how do you fight these things at this day? And I was like, well, that's how you do it. You have to have like Mace expert and
Yeah.
probably some nets.
That's fast adaptation, 9 lives, and you can do that fight at level 3 or 4. It's like 2, 3 necrospawn's. Absolutely. Well, obviously you
Well,
don't have Mace
well, level
Master
five.
level
Let's
4,
say
but
level five, but for the
yeah,
mastery,
level 5,
yes.
yeah. Yeah, I actually agree with you for my play style. I use a lot of tricks with Relentless and Maces and Catals and even some Greatsword shenanigans. The reason why for this list is I tried to incorporate other play styles. Specifically, I feel like there's a couple perks here that are S tier for every play style. And then as you build your team, there's different ways to put it together. You can just kind of build every brother individually, which is kind of your approach and a great approach. Um, you could also commit to like a combo based play based on either spears or catals. So I often commit to a catal based game plan, which has some pros and cons, of course. Obviously, the pro is you get all the pieces together, it's a lot stronger. The con is, well, there's that if word, right? You might need to get stuck in the desert for 3 days looking for that second or third Catal. Um, the spear, I think, is a different type of combo team. Like if you're going to build like 3 spearmen and base your team around that, I think that puts stuns down in value because you're using spear wall to disable enemies. That's kind of how I tried to think of that. If I was just rating for like how do Sims play the game, I would have Mason Gatal both in S tier. But trying to incorporate how I see other people approach the game, specifically like the synergies runs are really impressive, and he really just holds the enemy at bay with spear wall, lets them trickle through, pokes with reach weapons, and once something trickles through, blows them up. That was my thought there. Do you think that, and I'm pretty flexible on this one, do you think that for different playstyles, Mace Mastery still S tier? I think that's kind of more unique to the way that you and I approach the game.
Well, it's certainly, I think, the way we approach the game, because you don't have to fight that fallen hero on day 20 or 15 or whatnot with Mace Mastery.
Mhm.
Like, you can just come back later. So,
Yeah.
uh, but I just think the way we play, I just love the consistency of Mace Mastery. Also, people are terrified of Hexen. Like, no reason to be
Mhm.
afraid of Hex if you have Mace Mastery.
Yeah, I think I'm fine with that being below Fearsome, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay. I can agree with that. I can agree with that. I mean, I probably make, I would say average, I make, if I'm going to train if I'm going to train 16 brothers total in a run, um, I'd say probably 3 to 6 of them have Mace Mastery. Often
Oh,
I'll use those
really?
like Shield Mace guys early games and replace them with a Battleforge Mace guy. So yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Okay. I think I just like I try to role play too much. And I just want people to have a wide variety of weapons for fun. I could certainly
Mhm.
like play the game with 3 to 6 Ace Masters. It would probably be easier than the way I do it.
Yeah, absolutely. The A tier perks, um, we have a little slightly different opinion on Gifted. I like it a little more than you. Um, the main reason you're taking Gifted is if you're going to use melee defense. Melee defense scales exponentially. This whole like soft cap at 50, that's hot garbage. It doesn't mean anything. And if you're building a build that really relies on that defense, is really hard to skip. And so things like Battleforge or Nimble tanks, fatigue neutrals, even like shield mace type brothers, if you expect that unit to occupy 2 or more enemies, you probably want gifted, just for the 3 melee defense. And the other 2, whatever other stats you want to take are fine, but you're mostly taking gifted for that melee defense. I think you could just take gift on every brother and you would never be wrong. There's some situations, a lot of brothers you don't want gift on because it's a better perk. But it's always good.
Yeah, I
What are
agree.
your thoughts on that?
I think Gifted is extremely strong, and I probably undervalue it. I understand mathematically. I always try to point out on my streams when I make a suboptimal choice, like I understand this is the correct choice. However, I'm doing this other thing for fun, even though it is objectively weaker. And if you were trying hard, you really should do this other thing. I always try to point that out.
Mhm.
But I think Gifted, I don't point it out enough that it is often better than the other thing I choose to do. And it's exactly the reason you say, like, melee defense scales exponentially. That's it. Like, there is no more you need to know than that. I would like to think at least I take it on all my tanks, because you do
Mhm.
need to, and fatigue neutral type characters, which don't make, not because they're not strong, but because like I don't know, I just find it boring. But like on those builds, gifted is extremely good. In fact, mandatory, in my opinion. You have no choice.
Yeah.
Uh, I I think the reason why I value it a little less is because there's more drama when your characters aren't as
Mhm.
good and people
Okay.
could actually
Yeah.
die. It's like I don't pick it for the drama, but it is objectively like probably like you should probably pick it on almost every character.
Yeah, I think the cases for not taking it are going to be backliners. Maybe you want fast adaptation on like a hybrid. You don't really need gifted. You're not scaling melee defense. 3.5% to hit. Kind of anti synergizes with fast. The third roll on the hybrid's not that high value, so it's like I don't need gifted on like a throwing hybrid. It's fine if I take it. Um, but if I want to take fast adaptation for the early game tempo, I might have a space for gifted to skip it. And then I think good damage brothers, someone like a Viper or like if you're playing Northern Raiders, like all three of the barbarians, if you're making them damage brothers, even if stats that like that build's not used, those builds probably aren't going to use melee defense. Like you're going to probably go Relentless or Adrenaline on them. You're not going to get attacked that often. Like you can have 9 lives for worst case scenario, and then gifted's like it's fine. Maybe you take it, maybe you don't. But that's like a case where you could pick Executioner, Headhunter instead, and um, be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I agree. I do sometimes not pick it on the super strong brothers, even though it would really enhance them. Because some other perk, I think, uh, is more like useful.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think like a truly good example. I think Viper is really the best example. Stuff like Quick Hands, for
Yeah,
example. So you could do some sort of
yeah.
weird shenanigan with a reach weapon or like a Katal and a two-hander. Something like that would be better than.
Mhm. Yeah, because he's relying on initiative and relentless to avoid being attacked. He doesn't need the melee defense. He doesn't need the attack. Like, what am I getting? Like, I'm gonna get attacked once every 2 fights. Like, I don't need the -3% chance to hit. I don't need the 3 attacks. He's got 95 attack. Um, I'd rather take uh executioner, headhunter, or like bags and belts. Quick hands to throw potions. There's other things you can do that give you more tactical options. They're higher value than the defense on a unit that's not really meant to get attacked. Absolutely agree.
All right. In that case, is it my turn?
I think so.
My turn. Okay, Relentless. Relentless is a perk that I should have been picking a lot more on my latest run, but I just got into sort of the backstabber trap instead of picking. Just
Mm-hmm.
too worried nobody would hit anything. But I do think Relentless is objectively, I should have actually picked it a lot more and used it. Uh, now Relentless, this perk gives you two effects. Number one is your initiative decays by only 50% per fatigue spent. So as the fight goes on, your initiative doesn't drop as much. But there's a second effect, which is that when you wait with a character, you do not suffer a initiative or turn order penalty. The initiative is still the same on your brother, but in the turn order, you go slower if you wait. And Relentless removes that penalty. That secondary effect is, in my opinion, the
Mm-hmm.
real effect of this perk. The first effect is nice, and it does help you go quicker as the fight goes on. Also, this is definitely not some sort of dodge synergy. Like Relentless, the effect you get from dodge from this is like negligible. You're not taking this for dodge. This is a purely offensive perk with maybe like +1 defense. So it's basically a purely offensive perk. And the whole concept behind this perk, you want to wait, let the enemy do their thing, then you move and attack, and then next turn you go ahead of them and attack again. So you set up a double turn. And unlike adrenaline, it is free.
Mm-hmm.
And the free part is a important consideration. What are
Yeah,
your
agreed.
thoughts on Relentless?
Yeah, so I think probably the best positioning perk in the game. You could argue Pathfinder's better, but they're both very good. So being able to act in 18 AP chunks means that your damage brothers, so your brothers that are focused on getting kills, are almost never get attacked. And this is a big part about how players like you and I are able to take these late game trash brothers and still clear late game content. Because these scrubby 17 defense bros, it doesn't matter they have 17 defense, they're not getting attacked because they have relentless. Maybe look at like a couple example builds. Here's one. Pretend he has a Katala, not this. In this fight, 9 lives triggered, and he picked up the war sign. This is the Katala brother. This is kind of like a templated example, right? Where this, and keep in mind, this we cleared Monolith. This guy is a superstitious drunk with 81 attack and no stars in defense, right? So like, and he was great. He averaged, 85 days. He got 110. Oh, this is. Well, I say throwing banner, but I didn't make him one. Yeah, this is somebody else. These are stats for a different unit. So, uh, you get to set up a kill. So either an armor stripping weapon or like a stun or a daze injures an enemy. Then he steps up, kills 1 or 2 enemies, and steps back using that 18 AP, and keeps them out of danger. Another really powerful way to use Relentless is the enemy doesn't know you have it. If you still have AP remaining this turn, the enemy is always going to base their positioning on what you could do with 9 AP. If you have 18 AP, this lets you do things like run around the flank if you're fighting nobles and just kill Billman and Arlabaster with 2 relentless guys before they can do anything to stop you. It lets you chase down archers. It lets you, bait enemy brigands out of formation, and then jump them. And a lot of tricks for positioning and manipulating the enemy AI. It gives you so much control over the battlefield that I think I might even, I think it might be one of the best A tier perks. Here's another build that uses it. It's not just a Catal build. Another damage build, right? Here's same thing. We hit an enemy with a hammer or an axe or whatever. This guy steps up. He gets 2 turns to drop a bunch of greatsword AoEs, kills 2 enemies, and then gets back to safety. The big thing here we're talking about high level play is we're splitting roles. We're having brothers that are able to take contact. It's okay if they get attacked a couple times because they're built for it. They have indom, they have shields, they're stunning enemies, they have big heavy armor and high defense and underdog. And then these guys that really have attack, we're using them to kind of weave in and out of the fight. And there's just nothing that compares to Relentless for being able to do that. One like other niche way you can use it is if you want to do like overwhelm gunners, they need Relentless as well. Not a great build, but it's a build. And another like a niche build is you can take overwhelm on your banner. Any banner that wants to do stuff, uh, you can drop the banner at the end of turn 1, attack. Turn 2 starts, you can attack again, and then take the banner back out. You can have 100% uptime for that banner buff, and still use all of your AP to throw or attack with a pull hammer, whatever you want to do. Without Relentless, you can't do that without losing some of that uh, for the company uptime buff. Anything else to add in that, Deductor?
I absolutely love the Relentless banner idea. In fact, I should have thought of that. That's amazing. I have to do that in my well, if I do another run at some point. I have to do that. That's too good. That is like way too good. I never thought of it like that. But
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is the power of this perk. Like you can it's definitely a perk where you have to think a lot about how to use it, which is counter to like the sort of press buttons and just farm the game. Like this is you don't want Relentless if you want to play like that. But it opens so many interesting, fun options. I in my latest series, I think I didn't take it on almost anyone, and it's a mistake. Like it's objectively bad. I do it. There are a lot of brothers who are like based on the images that Sins is showing, have like sort of the same type of stats and the same type of quality of brothers that would have
Mhm.
greatly benefited from Relentless.
Yeah, here's one more to share, and this is more of like a pocket build. And so this guy is a second phase guy. He doesn't have initiative, right? Without the Hyena Pelt. But I knew going into Monolith, if I took Relentless instead of Fearsome, that I had enough initiative to double turn Ancient Dead. Even though this guy, I never leveled initiative once. Base initiative is normal thief initiative, right? Um, in specific fights, even with low initiative, you can double turn with a Relentless. So it doesn't even have to be a specific initiative brother in order to be able to go in and make use of it.
All right, it's showing an ad, but perhaps you can move on to the next one while the ad is playing on my screen.
Yeah, so Duelist, I mean, this one's really straightforward. Any 3 or 4 AP weapon gets a massive damage spike from Duelist.
If I
And
might
a lot of
interrupt, since I'm just going to try to predict something. So, Duelist specifically because of throwing in Kata. Is that correct? Or is that
and
what you think?
Mace and Flail and Cleaver and one of my most common builds in the mid game is like just a no spec guy with fast adaptation and a scimitar. Like that's what you're sitting at like level 8. You take
Okay,
Duelist and all of a sudden you do a ton of damage. There's so many use cases for Duelist. Um,
very
and most of your
interesting.
brothers through most of the game are gonna have one-handed weapons. But yeah, I mean Catal and throwing, those are my two favorites, but they're not the only builds that use it. Um, you know, Flail is a great use of a guy with 65 attack, 70 attack at mid levels, and a ton of fatigue. And that Duelist adds some damage. And then again, the sword example, and any random famed, you get a random Warhammer or whatever, and it's not a great weapon, but it's a famed, and you want Duelist on that. So I feel like there's so many times, so many of your brothers are going to end up using one-handed weapons that it's just such a big damage spike. What's your thoughts on that?
Very interesting. I was expecting mostly because of throwing weapons in Kata, which we all know are the highest damage type weapons. Now, I have taken Duelist on pretty much every weapon combination, including Spear, which, by the way, is
Yeah,
useful. But
it's okay. Yeah.
um, I guess some like I have done builds with one-handed swords or one-handed cleavers without duelists,
Hmm.
but I always do those. At least I like to think I always try to do those because I have some sort of like combo strategy. Like I have a guy with a hammer who's going to
Yeah.
strip off the armor, and then I can use the sword or the cleaver to do the damage when they don't have any armor. Duelist doesn't do anything, but you're not going to be able to set up those combos all that often, and unless you specifically try to do it, and it can take
Hmm.
some work to set it up consistently. Also, if your hammer dude misses, then what? Uh, and the
Yeah.
duelist allows you to bypass all those problems. I do agree it is a very significant damage buff. Um, I guess I was just thinking specifically of throwing and Katal and other weapons. I try to, and I could be wrong about this. Like, I try to do something more combo-y, but maybe I should just like often end up floating like 2 perks or whatever because I want to try to find like the right weapon for this bro, like what fits his personality. It's just like take something and slap duelist on him and just I did do that. I did. There was one character on my latest run with the scimitar, and for like I don't know 40 days or whatever, I just refused to commit him to sword mastery and duelist. And I finally did it. He's great, by the way. He does tremendous damage, but like I was
Yeah.
just, is this really the right weapon for this person? Like, is this your personality? And I get very indecisive about that. So listen to Sins, everyone, about duelists. Don't listen to me.
I actually agree with you on the weapon combo part. Is that to me is a big part of high skill play, and why kind of we're putting Zerk Frenzy down here is because you clear fights way faster by having intelligent combos. By having, like you said, a hammer guy hit, strip the armor, and then the sword guy comes in, finishes the kill. And then like now there's not another good target for the sword guy, right? It's like the Zerk Frenzy, you end up hitting a full armored guy with you don't want to be next to in the first place with your scimitar. It does nothing. You expose yourself to danger and took 2 perks to do nothing. Like, why would you do that? But a lot of times when you hit with a big chunky weapon, you get through like 2/3 of the armor, not all of it. And then Duelist is pretty important. Or you miss, or like you're on a target that got shot by your crossbow, or a good amount of armor was stripped by a gun. There's so many situations when like the extra damage from Duelist is going to be so high value that it's hard to pass the perk to me. Now you're kind of, it sounds like you're kind of trying to challenge yourself, being like, I'm good enough that I'm going to strip the armor before I bring this guy in. And that's valid. I think that the amount of times that doesn't happen due to the nature of the game is high enough. But I think for me, it's kind of hard to skip duelists on a lot of those guys.
I agree. I would like to think I try to set up those combos, and I think in times past I was better at it. But I've definitely not been doing that very well in my latest run.
Do you want to pick another perk from this? I think that
Yeah.
these three are kind of in order. Would you agree? Or do you think that duelist should be a little bit lower?
Um, I personally would think it's a little bit lower, but that's just me. I'm not sure I'm right about that. So I think we can leave it where it is. I should I do know that when I take duelists on like those brothers, they become so much more effective. I just
Yeah.
I'm often like trying to think how can I like do something else, and that might not be the right way to think about it. In fact, I don't think it is the right. I think your way is better.
We talked about Indom briefly. If you want to pick another perk to throw below duelist or above it, kind of factoring in both power and frequency. You want to pick the next one in order, maybe?
Uh, sure. I think I would actually agree, and maybe we can talk about these two together because they're pretty much in many ways similar. Throwing mastery and dagger mastery. Uh,
Okay.
so they're both basically damage. Throwing and dagger,
Hmm.
right? Throwing is plus 20 within 3, plus 40 if within 2 hexes, and dagger is just you get 1 extra attack, which is 50% more damage,
Yeah.
right? So both of these are basically straight damage perks. Interesting if you consider the other weapon mastery. The only other one, 2 or 3, well, there's 3 that adds flat damage. The crossbow for the armored pen, the polearm because you reduce AP so you can quick hands in 4 AP weapon, then a cleaver with the slightly extra bleed. But none of those effects are nearly as strong as throwing and dagger in terms of like the raw damage. So, and consider something like Killing Frenzy, which is objectively a lot of extra damage. That's only 25%. We're talking about 40% and 50% here. It's insane.
Hmm.
The amount
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
damage those two weapons can output. And throwers, for example, like you just make your range brothers throwers, and they will solve so many fights for you just from those throwing weapons. Uh, and Katal, the dagger mastery specifically is for Katal, not for the Rondo dagger or whatever, like the regular tier 3 dagger. That has very little value with the dagger mastery. It is very, very specific to that one weapon. Katals are sometimes a little hard to pick up, unfortunately. Like they just might not sell
Yeah.
it in the shops. And the only enemy I know of that spawns them naturally are assassins, and those are extremely rare. Sometimes you find a fame Katal, but that's just pure RNG. So
Yeah. Not gonna happen. Yeah.
so the problem with dagger mastery is a lot of times you just can't even get a Katal. Throwing weapons, on the other hand, are plentiful. All the barbarian
Hmm.
reavers have them. They're fight them. You're practically guaranteed a bunch of them, so they're super accessible. And they, if you're playing like optimally, the throwing weapon should be making up a significant portion of your damage for pretty much
Hmm.
any company. And then if you can get Katals, they will be making.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely agree with both of those. Throwing is just it's so much better than the other backline options that if you're kind of going for power. The question is not like what should my backliners do? It's what should they do in addition to throwing, right? Like it gives you so much single target damage. It basically lets you use your throwers as like mobile problem solvers. You can kind of move up and down your back line. In any specific portion of the fight where either the matchup's bad, maybe your fatigue neutral has two chosen with hammers on him, and you look at that matchup and you say, well, I don't want those chosen hammers to hit my forge guy. I'm gonna move my throwers there and blow those guys up. Uh, Often they have nets, smoke bombs, things like that. Same thing, like maybe you get just RNG'd and your shield mace guy gets hit, twice by a chosen with a two-headed cleaver. Your nimble shield mace guy, and you're like, crap. This dude had a shield out and like 45 defense, and I got 1 in 400. So I'm gonna move my throwers there and kind of use them to solve that problem. They let you kind of mitigate risk across the battlefield and kill one high priority target at a time. They're good in every single fight. If you want to go into goblin fights with a kite shield and javelins, you can. When you're fighting ancient dead, you use axes. Reduces fatigue when you want to throw fire pots, smoke pots, nets. Reduces the fatigue cost. Um, yeah, and every company wants at least two, in my opinion, regardless of play style. And so that's kind of why I ranked that. That kind of agree with those statements.
I agree. In terms of a optimal party, I think 2 or 3 throwers is best. In my latest run, I think I only have 1 thrower, not because it's not good, but because the other dude, he had a bow, and at level 1 at night, he hit a 7% and 11%. I was like, well, I have no choice but to make this guy like the worst range build in the game. He hit with a bow at 7 and 11, like in a row. What was I supposed to do? Like, from a roleplay perspective, I have no choice.
Yeah, that's fair. Fair. Dagger, I think I value the puncture a little more than you. So I don't just value one of the reasons why I really like Catals, especially in the hardest, let's say all the origins that are harder than Hogger, like the 4 or 5 that are there, is it makes it a little easier to puncture stuff. But sometimes those easier fights, like Catal guys are going in that fight with rondels or daggers equipped, and 2 or 3 of them are just forming 1 or 2 raiders and puncturing their gear. I feel like I have enough freedom in this fight to start with that out. So that's some economy, as well as like other contested fights. When you switch to that dagger to puncture, um, it's much lower risk for your team. So I think having the dagger masteries and using the dagger does that. I also think that there are some good puncture builds. They're kind of pocket builds, but there's a cool hybrid type build you can do. You can make like a crossbow puncture guy. You could do something like this. And he acts as kind of like a taunt. So, like enemies are gonna jump into the gap where he is. And then because of the crossbow, right? The crossbow like you can even have high range attack. It can be the frontliners hybrid. They jump into a 3-man surround to try to lock down your crossbow, and you just take out your dagger with backstabber and fast adaptation and have like 80% chance to hit and just kill them in farmer's armor. As well as like basically off tanks, right? Builds that are inline tanks that are meant to be more like basically the same kind of job of that a what am I thinking? Like a fatigue neutral would do, but with a much lower quality brother. The fact that using a dagger means that like the in-down recover synergy is there, right? Like you're not really you're skipping one's melee attack to level fatigue. You're using a shield. You need a bunch of you need to recover and a lot of fatigue to use puncture. And like you might as well like the crossover between these perks and stats is so high that this build lets you have that third tank. But instead of stunning things for utility, you can help the team's economy by puncturing him. And sometimes you do enough damage with puncture that you can bring your Catal guys in with daggers to finish. I feel like this kind of builds a lot of flexibility and a lot of utility. I think there are a couple other ways to use the puncture daggers that are maybe I run them once every 4 or 5 runs, but they're valid. I think that I incorporate that into our ranked dagger master and kind of I think that's probably correct right there below throwing.
I think everything you said is true. I just well, if we're talking about fun builds, then yeah, like Dagger Mastery because of the AP reduction, you can do all sorts of fun things. I was just thinking like from a purely uh, like if you're trying super hard in this game, I don't value the puncture very much because um, by the stage where I'm able to do that, I'll have like mace mastery or a disarm or some way of like locking
Mhm.
down the target I want to puncture that I don't care if like I get that extra attack to try to puncture him early. But from a fun perspective, yes, I love the range bait by the way, like have your range brother and then a crossbow or whatever, and then the AI run up, and you could pull a dagger to puncture. You could pull out a hammer and smack him. There's all sorts of fun things you could do there. You could have a dodge tank with dagger mastery and overwhelm. It's not good,
Okay,
but
yeah,
it
yeah,
is
yeah.
very good
It's
on
not a good one. Yeah.
single targets. Like it's actually pretty good against like lindworms, for example.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so um, there's all sorts of fun things you could do with dagger mastery. I would agree, uh, but I just personally think like like in terms of trying hard, it's my
Yeah.
mind just Catal.
Yeah, I agree. Catal and the other things are Catal guys that can puncture when they need to. And then I think that the puncture tank is like a B tier build. Like I think if you're playing super sweaty, you build it occasionally. The other one, like the crossbow dagger hybrid, that's getting the meme territory, but there will be runs when that's like the correct build to go. It's not. So yeah, I think we're pretty much on the same page with that stuff.
All right, shall you cover Pathfinder?
Yeah, do you think that like Pathfinder, this is a good position for it, or would you put it? Would you want another perk next year for putting them in order?
No, it feels very correct.
I
I
think
like
so.
it
I
where
didn't
it
try to
is.
put them in order. I think that's correct. I mean, it just saves a ton of AP and fatigue, right? Like, if you're using a 4 AP weapon, it's going to give you way more attacks. Uh, if you have to change levels in the forest or snow, it's going to give you another attack with a two-hander. The swamp, it's going to give you a lot of attacks. So lets you reposition your team uh, together. I think it's another perk that I want almost every brother. I'd say 10 to 12 brothers per run out of a 12-man roster probably want Pathfinder. Even on tanks, I think it's still a good perk because it saves a bit of fatigue, but also lets you move 2,000 indom. That's like the build where it's only good and not great. So because you're taking in so many brothers and it just helps your action counting and positioning so much. uh, It's just a great perk, right? Not a lot more to say.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I take Pathfinder on a lot of brothers. The main misconception I want to point out is you don't have to go all or none. Like that's wrong. You can certainly benefit from having some of your team with Pathfinder, so they have those options in the rough
Hmm.
terrain and even a regular terrain. You get that fatigue reduction
Yeah.
it adds up over many turns. You probably get some weapon swings out of it. You get a little more initiative if you're going for initiative and can more consistently go faster. Repositioning is huge. There are some fights where you win after you reposition. Like you just automatically win when you reposition the correct way. And
Hmm.
Pathfinder helps you achieve that. It's also fun to note most enemies have I should say most, many enemies have Pathfinder, but some, like the biggest one being like the Southern armies, the city states, not the nomads. City states, they don't have Pathfinder. So you can sometimes do some shenanigans and bait them into bad terrain and they get stuck there. The noble armies, I think, have the same problem. Like they have a terrible time with elevation or any sort of bad terrain. And if you have Pathfinder, you can pretty easily like engage selective members of the enemy and focus fire them down while the rest of them like struggle to get out of whatever bad terrain they're stuck in.
Absolutely. Yeah, I
Uh,
think that's a good place for it.
I have one more comment about Pathfinder. There's
Okay.
my favorite combo in the entire game is Athletic Pathfinder. Um,
Hmm.
Athletic means I think it's -2 fatigue per tile of terrain travel, and Pathfinder starts by cutting off the amount of fatigue you spent by half. And that effectively means if you have an athletic brother and you take Pathfinder on most types of terrain, he spends like either 0 or 4 fatigue moving like 4 hexes. So he can basically
Yeah.
move for free, which is incredible when you combo it with initiative. In fact, on any brother I have athletic, I have to pick Pathfinder. Maybe not the first pick, like not the first perk, but I pick it at some point, and I try to think of fun ways to abuse that combo. That might be, I know this is all the way down, footwork. That might be one of the very few brothers I might take footwork on because there might actually be some weird kiting things you could do with the
Yeah.
athletic Pathfinder combo. But it's so
Lindworms. You can
niche.
use Lindworms. You
Yeah,
can give him 46 range attack and a bow. And Lindworms will just follow around in circles with the rest of your team kills them. You can absolutely do that.
it's just super niche, right? You need a athletic
Yeah.
brother
Yeah.
specifically, but
Oh, and we both forgot that fatigue neutrals need Pathfinder to function.
oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, as another. Do you want to cover the next perk? And you think that should go in order?
Yes. So dodge, you get 50% of your current initiative as melee defense. So it does drop down when your initiative goes lower. However, who
Mhm.
cares? By that point, you won the fight or you wiped.
Yeah.
Oh, who cares when you're like fatigued out and you have 30 base initiative? At the start of fight, that is usually between 10 to 15 melee defense. And when you're picking this at level 3, a lot of your bros probably have very bad armor. They probably don't even have Brigand Raider armor. So it
Mhm.
synergizes even better. Um, and yeah, it's just so much defense that
Yeah.
it's just so much pure stats accessible super early in the game. Helps you avoid so many attacks. It also works on ranged attacks as well, not just
Yeah.
melee. And that's like those crossbow marksmen. Whew, everybody is terrified of them. I'm terrified of them. Every time I see those, I clench. Like, ah. But with dodge, I can feel a little better. Not the same as Nimble when I want to get shot when I have Nimble, but at least I can avoid some of those incoming fire. So
Yeah.
yeah, I can't think of any negative things about dodge. I guess the only negative thing is you might still pick it early game, but like it doesn't combo very well with battle. It's like the only negative thing I can.
Yeah. Yeah, I think dodge that early game power spike is really important and it scales well. I mean, even if this perk only gave you the melee defense, you'll probably take it a ton. Gives you both the melee and the range. It gives you more defense early in the fight, and the defense is more important. Absolutely, absolutely agree. One negative thing I'll say is I think people pick it in bad situations trying to outsmart themselves. The builds like dodge fatigue neutral can be very good on very niche brothers, and people try to like force the build on a brother with like 95 fatigue and 110 initiative, and they'll level initiative bunch instead of HP or resolve. I think that kind of thing is wrong. I call that outsmarting yourself. I think trying to make like a dodge tank, kind of the same thing. Like I've made dodge tanks in sweaty runs, but in general you don't want your tanky dodge based when I'm in down based. So I think it's a perk that can kind of become a trap if you're trying to force it, rather than just taking it for that level 3 power spike for damage.
I agree. I made a dodge tank in my latest run. It's not very real, like
Yeah.
compared to the standard tank, but it's fun enough. And against anything that's not a super hard fight, like uh, I would only classify Southern armies from my company as a super hard fight. That dodge tank would actually be good. I would not be afraid of Chosen or Lindworms or Orcs or anything like that. You don't need tanks for goblins. So but I would be terrified of the southern armies with my dodge.
Yeah.
So dodge things
The-
are amusing.
to me, they're very opportunistic. Like I get a -3 fatigue shield, and I can perma shield wall. And I have like a gambler with 120 initiative star, like 85 fatigue. I'm like, oh, okay, this guy can tank monolith. I'm kind of scared to use him as a battle forge dodge tank against like chosen and berserkers, places where you really need indom. But like he will hold up in monolith because there's no big hitters there. Problem with like trying to use dodge that way is you have a ton of like EHP, but that's not a good way to think about the game. You have really high risk. Like you get hit by one big hit, and you're just toast. You're gonna get injured. A lot of injuries reduce initiative. You're gonna get morale checked. You're gonna get pushed around or stunned, and your shield wall is gonna drop. If you're comparing dodge to indom, indom just does that job better. Um, so the next perk here, I mean, are we underrating Spear Mastery having it at the bottom of A tier? What do you think?
No, I like
Higher?
it where it is. I always so Spear Mastery, of course, has two effects. One, fatigue reduction. That's actually massive, and the other one is even if someone breaches your spear wall can still repel enemies. Spear wall
Mm-hmm.
is one of those skills that I think is poorly utilized. The curve goes like this: when you first play Battle Bros, you have no idea what's going on. It's just, oh, you have a spear. There's a button you can click. Spear wall. That looks like fun. That's the first tier. Then you learn spear wall is terrible and like it just wastes fatigue. The AI knows to avoid it, so you never ever use spear wall again. But then after that, you start to learn, oh, there are some situations where if I spear wall is really good for some cases are obvious. Zombies will just run into them. Okay. But other cases are less obvious. A lot of AI is programmed to try to flank you, orc berserkers, chosen, or barbarians, really. And if you spear wall, they usually, sometimes they'll run into spear, but more often than not, they'll just keep trying to circle around and flank you. And if there's terrain blockers, your one spear
Mm-hmm.
dude can basically like keep two or three enemies away from your main group while you engage, destroy, like defeat the enemy in detail. That's pretty much how you always want to play Battle Brothers, by the way. Like you want to defeat your enemy in detail, focus fire down a couple enemies, and control the other ones in some
Mm-hmm.
fashion. And the Spearman is a fantastic control. Um, and Spear Wall is like when the AI wants to avoid it, there's no roll, right? They don't even like try to breach the spear wall. So you don't even have to roll like mace mastery. You get hit. You can miss with a mace. Whereas spear wall, a lot of times, you don't care if you don't even want them to try to run it. You just want them to like run around your squad, wasting their AP doing nothing until you're ready to actually engage them. Um, there are certain other situations where spear mastery is extremely valuable. One major enemy is the Noxers, the Nachos. They are deceptively dangerous. They seem like very basic tier 1 beasts that you could fight basically from day one, but they are actually among the most dangerous enemies in the game if you are not careful. And it doesn't matter what your gear is. Like you could have a decked out company with all fame gear and you could wipe to like 30 nachos if you don't play
Yeah.
carefully. Because the
Yeah.
big ones will eat your brothers and then it doesn't matter what gear you have. Spear Mastery works extremely well against Nachos. They basically can't handle it. And if you combo it with something like Fearsome, then suddenly, like, they just rout instantly when you do it. Uh, one final note
Yeah.
about.
And
I'm sorry, I just have one final note. Now I'll pass it to you, Sins. I almost never make pure Spear Brothers because Spears, terrible damage, and you just there's so many enemies in the game with high armor.
mhm.
I always try to have some sort of backup option for my spear brothers once they get pretty high level, like 9, 10, 11. Some sort of hammer, perhaps, or a two-handed mace, two-handed axe. You don't have to take the mastery for it. You just have to have the weapon and preferably quick hands. Um, so that you have a backup option. Also consider having a reach weapon like a polearm. Again, you don't need a mastery because sometimes you just need to spear wall. They're one hex away. You swap to a polearm, hit, fall back. Works great against chosen, by the way, because most chosen cannot move to an attack except the ones with cleavers. And you do that towards like the end of a fight once you're done with the control. And
Mhm.
it's just there's all these opportunities to abuse the spear wall shenanigans that uh, is just so great. I think the positioning of this perk is correct because I just feel like Mace Mastery is far more valuable in the super early game clutch positions, and Spear Mastery is
Mhm.
better when your company is more established and you're trying to control multiple enemies at the same time, and that's more of a mid late game thing.
Yeah.
On to you, Sins.
Yeah. So my pick on spears to kind of, I think that's a perfect on point take for using like one or two spearmen in a run. I think our ranking should also factor in our friend who just recently joined us, Slurgy, whose entire team company is usually based around spears. I think focusing on spears in that same way, I think they rated like 20 minutes ago. I
Oh,
focus on
20.
Catal. And you build your entire team around the function of spearmen as well as your fight timing. And so spears, just like Catals, have a lot of pros and cons. One of the big pros of spear of Catals is you're hard committing to a meta and you have to find the darn things. Um, the big pro of spear, and this involves so many decisions and so many different gameplay loops that I'm not 100% of my evaluation of it, but my hot take is it gives you a really powerful level 6 to 8 power spike. Where you can get into some really hard chosen camps, and even more so, really hard orc camps that you couldn't take with any other build. Once you build your entire company, everybody's going to have quick hands. You build 3 or 4 range guys instead of 2 or 3. Um, you make your best brothers into spearmen because it gives you a giant. You can get into those high tier edge of the map camps specifically for orcs and a little less chosen because you've made that spearman. So it involves an almost entirely different gameplay loop. With the drawbacks of spears being that you've made your best brothers into like a mid late game tempo, and then your recruiting is a little different because you get a lot less value out of melee defense. So to me, spears is something I make when I roll a lot of attack guys and not a lot of defense guys. I need to fill a control role without using melee defense. But I feel like we should give a little bit bigger nod to spears just because if you dial that in, right, and take advantage of that, you have to use a spear correctly. You have to build the rest of your team around it. And you also have to play to the spear's power spike and take advantage of that. And it would take me 10 or 20 runs of focusing on spears to get to where Explorgy is there, or at least like close enough to really understand that. So I feel like there's actually a lot of different things you can do in the game because of that I can't fully wrap my head around. But just looking from results, the impressive runs Slurgy's done, and kind of holding it down over the last couple of years as being the main Battle Brothers streamer and really being the spear stand. I think maybe this should be a little bit higher.
Ah, interesting. I do love spears, but I usually only try to make one. I always try to have at least one spear brother in every company. I think it is actually optimal. If you're trying to build a min max company, I think a spear
Mhm.
bro, I would always want one. However, two, I
Yeah.
guess I could make use of two, but I can't imagine more than two.
Yeah, so
One would
fairly
be
different
enough for
approach.
me.
Okay, let's go ahead and put it up with the other weapon masters. Just it's not the way that you or I play, but just looking at the way that some other top players are playing and try to kind of incorporate different play styles. I struggle with them because my strategy is based so much on initiative leapfrogging, like adrenaline. I play really aggressively and don't get much value out of the spear personally. But I'm absolutely missing a couple opportunities there.
I'm also very aggressive, despite it might seem if you kind of watch how I do things at a surface level. Um, so to clarify, I'm very conservative in battle birds. I hate taking any sort of chance, and because of that, I
Mhm.
am hyper aggressive. Like the way you play safely in battle brothers is to be aggressive, but you
Yeah,
can't.
absolutely.
Like if aggression is a scale from 0 to 10, you want to be like a 9. You don't want to be 10. You don't
Mhm.
want to be absolutely
Right.
fully aggressive. You need some degree of control and safety in there. And Spear, I think, fits that niche very well.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I think that's. I could try making two spearmen and see how that works out. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think that game plan is more rather than like putting your spear off to a side or like using a choke point, it's kind of keeping the spears within the team and just you're just stalling the enemy one tile away from you. And the spears will be parallel with your melee guys. You're trying to basically stall almost all the enemy team away from you, and just as they filter in, and obviously while you poke them with reach weapons and throwables, as they filter in, then you immediately blow up, quick hands to your one tile weapons and blow up whatever filters through. I think it's a strong approach to the game. Again, it just requires a really specific understanding and a lot of experience with that playstyle to generate that kind of value out of.
All right, shall we move on?
Yeah, where should we have these last three? I think are probably not in the correct order and maybe the wrong place. I know you brought up Indom before. Where do you want to put that, kind of knowing that we're incorporating frequency into the rankings?
Hmm. Since we're on these last three perks, we I propose we talk about them sort of in combination.
Okay.
Well, we'll cover each individually a little bit, but it's really hard to talk about all three without some sort of combination, like considering
Yeah.
how they interact with each other. So, Indom, Shield Mastery, and Underdog, they're all absolutely core tanking perks. There are no tanks without those three perks.
Hmm.
And for tanks, they're S tier. And because I want at least one Indom tank, there's at least one brother in my company who I will always take all three as soon as I can. Like the level they can take it,
Yeah.
that's what they get. And then the value just drops for me after the
Yeah.
one, or really you should have two tanks. But like
Agreed.
after the tanks, in my mind, the values just completely drops. That is not to say these perks aren't necessarily useful, but they do become far more limited, in my opinion. Indom, I don't think
Agreed.
I've ever taken it outside of back when Adrenaline Indom Psycho was a thing. I don't think I've ever taken it anymore on a one who actually does any damage. So, I mean, I shouldn't say that. Throwing tanks. I've taken it on throwing tanks, but that's still a
Yeah.
tank. But outside of that,
Right.
I can't imagine like any sort of actual damage dealer taking it. Shield Expert, there is a use case for it. It's two niche, well, they're not that niche. It's the one-handed mace and one-handed hammer builds.
Hmm.
They can benefit from Shield Master quite a bit. A mace is pretty self-explanatory. You're usually just controlling. Hammers actually do really good damage to armor,
Yeah.
even without double grip, even without duelist. They wreck armor. So you can make a perfectly valid hammer shield bro, and they output
Hmm.
respectable damage, and they're very tanky. Um,
Yeah.
and then
Agreed.
lastly, Underdog. I don't like Underdog. I in my latest run, outside of the tanks and maybe like one or two other bros, I am not taking Underdog. So I personally would actually rank Underdog like one tier lower.
Interesting.
And it's not because melee defense doesn't scale, which it does, and Underdog is good for that. And you are often getting at least +5 defense value from it, at minimum.
Hmm.
Sometimes more, but usually just 5 or 10, let's say 10. And 10 is a lot. 10 is a lot of defense.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I I want to think that I can play in such a way that my positioning and my target selection abilities allow me to deal with the enemy before Underdog comes matters too much. Like maybe I might get one turn of value or 2 turn of value out of it. And my brothers can all survive enough hits. Like in 2 turns, if every single attack hits near the late game, it's fine. And if it's anyone else who needs to be tanking that like an actual tank, well, they do have Underdog. So the damage dealers, I don't consider needing Underdog at all. That's just my particular style of
Agreed.
playing.
Agreed.
So
Yeah, so I think we're pretty closely aligned with like when we take underdog. Because so I'll start with underdog and work backwards. I take it on if I make fatigue neutrals, they need it obviously. I'd say probably average like 2 or 3 fatigue neutrals per run. Like it's not a build you want to spam. It's a tanking build that goes down in value the more you make. I think I take it on like shield mace guys. I think it's worth a perk. Um, Sometimes I'll take indom on them too and use them as an off tank. So if I'm making like 2.5 tanks, then like maybe if I make a 12-man roster, like 5 guys have underdog and it's pretty good. It's Esther on the tank. And the other units it's good on. Like you wouldn't want to skip it because sometimes you want them to be in position for 3. I think my thought is it adds enough value. It adds a ton of value when you need it. Like, would you want to go into monolith with a tank that doesn't have underdog? What would that look like?
well, that's a good point. I last time I fought Monolith was back in the Anonymous. I want to say I did take a decent amount of Underdog. I think part of it was also actually did make like 1 fatigue neutral, and I had some other stronger brothers in that particular game. And I specifically wanted to fight all the legendaries. I think the value goes up if you want to do stuff like that, and you have excellent quality brothers. I just think if it's a weaker brother, there's usually something like more valuable to take. And
Yeah,
I'm also okay with losing those weaker brothers. And I feel like if I lose them, it's often not really because of underdog. There's like some other mistake I could avoid it. Now, those mistakes could be very hard to spot and it's very hard to avoid. And I'm not like able to focus or concentrate and identify those as readily. I think um, underdog is creates a certain buffer or
right.
makes your game more forgiving that there is great value in it. I just like to think
Yeah,
that if I were able to like play more optimally, like the more optimal you play, I think the lower the value of underdog. But it's just so hard to actually do
agreed.
that in reality that like I can understand why it's consistently rated very highly.
Yeah, so I guess kind of my thinking is obviously it's Esther and tanks, and you're gonna make 2-ish. And then a fatigue neutral type build, which you're gonna have defense brothers, like 3 or 4 of. It's good. Like you could skip it on all them, and the game would get kind of harder. But the value of those combined um, to me is pretty high. I guess if you're using more spears, underdog's gonna fall in value. I think the other question is like how are we ranking it in terms of like the message we send for community perception. You do not want underdog on your damage brothers, right? Your guys with if they have Berserk and Frenzy or Relentless, you don't want underdog.
Yeah,
If you
that's
have
true.
Duelist, you don't want underdog. So for most of those builds, if you have like dodge, quick hand, you only want underdog on dedicated defense brothers, and on them it's strong based on how many enemies they're taking. So I could see underdog being like either the last A tier perk or maybe a B tier, like best B tier perk somewhere in here. I think that anywhere in here is like a reasonable range for it. Um, let's leave it
Probably.
here for now, and then if we talk about some perks in here that we think are stronger than it, like if we're saying like you have quick hands and bags and belts are stronger than underdog, we can move that around. We can leave it here for now and kind of be open to moving that later.
Yeah,
Skill mastery I think we're kind of agreed there.
I think that is very reasonable. I will say my personal dislike of fatigue neutral really lowers my personal value of underdog But it is also true that fatigue neutral is objectively an extremely good build, and you really should be doing it a lot. In fact, all the listeners right here, please make your fatigue neutral build. Your games will just so much easier. You don't have to like think all that much. Do some
Mhm.
thinking, but it makes the game so much easier, and you really should do it. And you do need underdog on those characters. So I just
Audio,
like I try to do mostly glass cannons.
yeah.
It's very dangerous, and people die. Well, people died a decent amount, so it happens.
I
And
think the made, yeah, for sure.
yeah, I just think what you said about underdog being not good for DPS, like damage dealers, that is perhaps the most important takeaway. That if you're trying
Yeah.
to make a duelist, you're trying to make a some sort of berserk frenzy type build or something like that, you do not actually want underdog because they should be able to kill things quick enough that you shouldn't need underdog.
If you're putting in a position where they're in two enemies and you don't have a plan to probably kill both of them, you should not have put them there.
Yeah, that's what the fatigue neutrals are for.
Yeah, the fatigue neutrals are a build that I think it's a good build, but there's people are oversold on it just because of the way Reddit works, right? So Reddit people post their tryout mod 9-star brothers, and those 9-star brothers are the ones that make fatigue neutrals out of. The more optimally you're playing, the more you're getting ahead of curve and not needing those guys. So yeah, you in the Magic world, you want 4 fatigue neutrals on your 12-man squad. So like that's a big grind to get there. You don't need that many resources to beat the game. You can be running around with your spearman, your shield mace guy, your shield hammer guy, some random indom scrub. Do the same job with less resources, less stats, less armor. Your fatigue neutral is just a pile of resources, right? This high level brother and this high level expensive gear. You just kind of be a pillar, which is great. It's powerful, but you may be able to beat those fights without that kind of resources. I
Yeah.
have a
Oh,
couple of use cases. Yeah, go ahead. If you had more to add to that.
uh, a little bit more before we move on to the next tier. I had two comments. Number one, specifically about Shield Expert. There is a very important early game breakpoint. You should look for a heater shield as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Like try to get one from the armories, cities with
Mm-hmm.
armories. It's quite common. You should be able to get one pretty early. And the heater shield plus shield master combo. When you shield wall, you get plus 50 defense. And your tank probably should have like I'd say 5 to 10 more defense. So you're getting
Mm-hmm.
like 55, 60 defense on a level 4 character. That is enough to tank pretty much all of the dangerous early game enemies, like your
Yeah.
brigand leaders, your basic fallen hero, your um, well, certainly raiders. Even just tanking like a brigand raider very, very consistently has
Mm-hmm.
tremendous value. So that is one of
Great.
the strongest early game things you can do. Heater shield expert. Uh, Next, on the topic of fatigue neutral, um, there is a pseudo fatigue neutral build that I personally use. It's not actually like a true fatigue neutral, but it's the build that I love doing when I can find a brother for it. I made one in the I think the Anonymous series and also the Beast Slayer series. It's Garrow. I call him the Garrow build. And it's if the thing is you have to find a super high quality brother. Like it has to be a truly exceptional brother. It's so hard to find someone like that. He has to have good like stats across the board, especially
Mm-hmm.
defense and initiative. And what I do is I take like all the defensive perks like Colossus, not all, like usually it's Colossus, dodge, um, not 9 lives actually. I bank on them living. It's probably a mistake. So it'd be like Colossus, dodge, gifted. No, I don't go gifted. The brother's so good. I don't even take gifted. I would do Pathfinder resilient, sword expert because it's Geralt of Rivia and he loves swords. Underdog, nimble, and then depending on variations, you could go like duelist or I think I usually take quick hands, but not always. Oh, I take Overwhelm on this character as well, even though it's probably not optimal. But he has to end up with something like 45 defense before dodge, and then he has
Mhm.
like 130 initiative or something. Oh, Relentless has me in there. And he's
We're
kind
already
of
already
oh
at 10 perks. So I don't
take
imagine this is
off
up.
take off like Duelist, and you can put Relentless in there because sometimes they give him a great sword.
Okay.
He has to have Relentless. That's
It's
more
not that.
important.
Yeah, I make builds that are kind of like that too. I would take 9. I would take gifted as well instead of quick. But yeah, I make builds kind of like that. It's a good build. Just having relentless gives you a lot of power over the battlefield.
But I would use that character like a fatigue neutral because their defense is so high that I
Yeah.
can put them against like 2 enemies or 3 enemies and they'll be perfectly safe. They can't actually take the hits like a real fatigue neutral can, but I
Mhm.
try to rely on the defense to be a little more survivable.
Yeah, they have like
So
70 defense and resilient effects. You can use this kind of build to like bait out hex and charms, and you can get a lot of value out of resilient. This kind of. Yeah, I see that.
uh, yeah, those were just the 2 last comments I had on A tier perks. Now,
Mhm.
before we continue, I propose a short break because I'm going to get something to drink. So maybe
Sure,
2 to 5 minutes, let's say.
sure. Yeah, let's be back in 5.
All right, I am back. Oh, if Sins is back yet. Let's see what has been going on in chat. I know some of these viewers might not be here, but I'll try to respond to some of this. Let's see. First one we didn't respond to. Sure, but 6 AP weapons are easy to use with low stats. Backstabber plus 6 others. Maybe. I'm not sure I entirely agree with that. I think fast adaptation is better than backstabber, mostly because fast adaptation, that's so important. Let's see. What else? That's the main difference. Like fast adaptation is not conditional. And it makes it, it's more clutch when you need it to land. What else? Fearsome is tier S, but mobs in main location don't feel fear. I assume he's talking about Monolith. Yeah, I mean, by the time you fight Monolith, you should be strong enough that you can be down a couple perks and you'll be fine. If you're failing Monolith because you didn't take like Berserk and you had some Fearsomes, you're gonna fail if you took Berserk. Let's put it that way. Like any team that can clear Monolith with some Fearsomes, uh, it's not like they would magically be able to clear Monolith because you took like Berserk. Yeah. So it's a non-factor. It gets you the Monolith much faster. Let's see, what else? Too many ads on YouTube. I agree. All right, I've covered all the comments.
Yeah, I agree that fear in the comments saying fast adaptation Fearsome aren't that good. As you get more experience with the game, you'll play faster, and the tempo that those perks provide will give more and more value. So if you're a newer player and you're taking longer to scale your company, it's harder to realize those gains. But I would just work on taking those perks and getting better at taking advantage of them. I think we'll talk more about Backstabber when we get there. But I think both those takes just they're more like intermediate. If there's like beginner, intermediate, advanced, expert, there's a kind of intermediate player take. Like fast adaptation isn't good late game. I don't care. I could delete the perk at level 11 on half my team and it wouldn't matter. It's for tempo. The same with Fearsome. Like you take it for that level 8 or 9 to between then and Monolith, and you just crush orcs and chosen and everything else. By the time you get in Monolith, that perk has generated so much value. You don't necessarily need the perk anymore. You won a bunch of fights, got famed items, got veteran levels. Didn't lose brothers because you took Fearsome.
All right.
Then a couple more things with Indom. I think I use Indom on more type of brothers than you. I will occasionally take it on a fatigue neutral. If I feel like I need it for like orcs.
Oh, there's some sort of
Use it once, you don't get stunned.
lag. Okay, your audio is back. Okay, it's all good.
Okay. Yeah, I can take it. I can just use it once in a fatigue neutral. The 10th perk in a fatigue neutral is pretty low value. And sometimes they both Indom banners, where he stands in the front line and Indoms. He kind of holds the banner and has a shield in his pocket for if he gets in trouble. It's like it's like 1 or 2 enemies. He's not tanking like a tank. Excuse me. But some kind of unhold orc, berserker charges your team, you can stop that stun and just kind of sit there and give your team the resolve buff. I think that's pretty more pocket situations. And I take it on Shield Base Brothers as well. I take Indom. Sometimes you'd rather Indom 2 enemies than stun 1. But it's situational. I think there's just not enough overlap. I generally want recover on my stun brothers, and so Indom is like a 10th perk. I think tactically it's got a lot of benefits.
Okay, how interesting. I had never considered. I have built a tank banner before. I can't remember if I gave him Indom, but I love that idea. Like having the banner out, just Indoming. You don't even need a shield. Yeah, they get hit a bunch, but who cares? Should be able to clear the one enemy after a little bit. I love that idea. That's great. Love it.
Yeah.
And I like the idea with the Mace Bros having Indom as well, because they can then pseudo tank plus Recoverer gets extra value. So the Mace Bros have 2 ways of tanking. Some enemies you just can't like stun, and Indom's
Yeah.
amazing. So I love both ideas.
Any perks from B or below, we think we should add to A tier. Like maybe fortified mines should be A tier. What do you think?
Hmm. There is one. It is quick hands. Quick hands I would consider A
Yeah.
tier.
Under or over underdog? Where do you want an A tier?
Quick hands, probably in the middle somewhere, like right after throwing, or right after the weapon masters. Maybe after
Yeah.
Pathfinder.
After before gifted. Or
Like
sorry, dodge.
after meaning to the right of Pathfinder. That's
The
what I
right
mean.
of Pathfinder.
Like between
Do you think
Pathfinder and
dodge
Dodge.
you think it's better than
I think I'd take quick hands on more brothers than Dodge, or maybe they're very comparable. It's somewhere in the
yeah.
Pathfinder Dodge area somewhere. They're in some ways, like in my mind, they're in some ways similar perks. Even though I know it doesn't grant defense or anything, but it grants you like 4 AP basically because you can switch weapons
Okay.
once for free. And it has to be not a two-handed, so it's throwing weapons or one-handed weapons. Um, but the right turn for that is no, that's not true. That's not true. It does work for two-handed weapons. What am I thinking? Oh, I once proposed a nerf that quick hands shouldn't work with two-handed weapons. That would probably be way too brutal. And quick hands would be like pretty trash.
It'd be fine.
Um, really? You think it'd still be fine? You can't do
It'd
the
be
quick
more
hand.
niche.
I'm sorry. What? I'm sorry. Could you say that again?
It'd be a lot more niche if it only worked on one-handers.
Yeah, I agree. But quick hands
Yeah,
just opens so many things. Like one of the
it
best
does.
early games things you can do is have a reach weapon in the pocket so that you can quick hands to it, hit an enemy. You can have like a reach weapon and a two-hander. So hit an enemy, step back, or you move up once, quick hands, and then hit enemy that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get to.
Yeah.
Obviously good on any sort of range character because not only can you quick hands between like two stacks of throwing weapons, but if you get zoned by a melee enemy, you can bust out your melee weapon like a giant hammer in the pocket, just smack that. Like that's a bait strategy that can work so well. Uh those are probably the
Yeah.
two major use cases of quick hands, but they're pretty strong use cases.
Agreed. I think quick hands is kind of that that bell curve meme where on the left, like quick hands bad because it doesn't do damage. And then like once you're better at the game, you see how many things you can do at it. I think you just start to get really good. Quick hands starts to fall off. A lot of players rely on that quick hands as a reach weapon to feel like they're doing something. When if they thought they had better vision for the next 2 to 3 turns of the fight were going to look like, they could have arranged the battlefield to actually use their main weapon. So I feel like quick hands is overpicked by intermediate and advanced players. It's kind of a crutch to still push a button. When it's like, okay, maybe if we thought about the fight a little more carefully, we could have gotten our guy to swing his great axe instead of his, bill hook. So I agree that it's very good, and I kind of put it B tier to just kind of make the point that like it seems OP and you take on like everybody when you're like intermediate and like advanced, and then yeah, as you get better, you start using it less. I'm like maybe you take it on like 3 to 5 people instead of like 8. There was a point I took quick hands on everyone who wasn't a tank, right? Like I took it on 10 out of my 12 people. But now I think it's like I take it on 3 or 4 guys, maybe 5 in a 12-man lineup, which is more than I take, same as like underdog or shield mastery or dodge or yeah, I think that's the correct place for it. The B tier is kind of a troll placement. I think.
I think you make a really good point that there is a bit of that bell curve where I do think if you position better, you shouldn't need quick hands as much. And in fact, I feel like that is where I'm somewhat weaker. I do take the quick hands as almost a bit of a crutch or patch perk for my playstyle. Like sometimes I make a positioning mistake, quick hands will bail me out of it. and I value that quite a bit. I feel like in some ways it's similar to like how you think about Underdog. Like I like to think I
Yeah,
don't need Underdog. And the same thing, like I shouldn't need quick hands as much, but I do use it as a bit of a crutch, a very strong crutch,
yeah.
with some other upsides, like oh, quick handing the nets. That's the third major use
Hmm.
case, like quick handing the nets or a potion of some sort, like the smoke bomb, for example,
Yeah,
can literally save lives. So, um, but yeah, you really shouldn't need it as much. Like the better your positioning is, the less you should need it. I would agree with that statement. So I could also see an argument for quick hands being like the top of the B tier. That would also be reasonable.
yeah. We're talking about expert level play, right?
Yeah.
I think
So maybe we
only
should
what
put quick hands next to Underdog because they're both like kind of
yeah,
the same like concept of they're a bit of like a, cl- a clutch or
yeah,
crutch. How do you say it? Crutches, crutches, crutches.
yeah.
That's what I was
I
trying to
think,
say.
I think that's reasonable. Yeah, no, I think that's reasonable. The other thing, like I think people overrate quick hands is oftentimes for fatigue neutral, you have to level fatigue like twice to make room for it. And I think that if you have to do that, it is not worth it. And an initiative builds, you're losing 7 initiative and 7 fatigue to have a backup weapon. And that's not worth it. I think people tend to take it in the wrong situations. So I think bottom of A, top of B, that's where it belongs. If you can move it around if we think of any other perks in here that are better. I think
Um,
about fortified mind being in A tier.
I could see an argument for that, but I will say I don't take the fortified mine as much. Like it's S tier obviously on your banner, and I do take
Mhm,
it on some other brothers. I tend to think of it more as a patch. Like if my brother's really struggling with resolve, I'll often
mhm,
take it. It's really good on tanks. You should probably take it on your unless your tank
mhm,
is some absurd like fearless starting with 55 base, so that's 65 resolve or something absurd. Like you're not going to get someone like that. That's not going to happen. So resolve is going to be on most of your tanks, but I
mhm.
don't value it very much on my other brothers. Partly maybe because I don't build fatigue neutrals, but it's also
Okay.
I do value resolve. I just like level it naturally, and I sometimes will skip defense for resolve or hit points for resolve,
Mhm.
stuff like that,
Yeah,
uh, rather than pick fortify mind. But I could also fix my problem by just like taking fortify mind.
yeah.
So I might be undervaluing it.
I think a couple of things here. So obviously S tier on your banner. A tier on tanks. Like I think you can choose between Lone Wolf and Fortified Mind in most situations on a tank. Sometimes you take both. If you're putting the tank in formation, you probably want Fortified Mind. You definitely want it on most fatigue neutrals, and then some like shield mace type builds. It makes fearsome better if you're probably using a good amount of fearsome. If you're gonna make like a fearsome gunner, overwhelmed gunner, which is like not a common build, that build probably wants fort. And then it also works for the buff you get from the banner. So it's a little bit better numerically than it looks at first blush. I think it's got a lot of use cases where it's a decent amount of stats. Even in like deserters, like we took fortified mine in them, even for like 7 resolve when we did our deserters run. Because we knew the only way we were gonna lose was bad resolve. So it's good as a patch perk on normal bros too. And there's a lot of use cases for it. Maybe it's the good B tier perk and not a bad A tier perk, but I think that's somewhere in the correct range.
I think so too. I do recall we did take a lot of fortified mind on the deserters run, and a lot of it was just patching characters with very bad resolve up to make sure their resolve is at an acceptable level.
Yeah.
So I agree. I probably could be picking that slightly more in my own run. But
Yeah.
I just tend to level it naturally at the cost of other stats.
Yeah, I think usually there's, you're going to get like 10 to 15 resolve from it, and like 10 to 15 secondary stats for a perk is not a great trade. If you need Pathfinder or Duelist or um, Ace Master, you don't want to skip that stuff for a Fortified Mind. But there's a good amount of use cases. I think we can move stuff around. Do you have another perk you want to put really high in the B tier?
I am just looking through the list. I don't know. Adrenaline probably should be a little higher. I always like to get one or two Adrenaline Brothers specifically very early game, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
like absolutely essential. But in the early game, if I find someone with a lot of fatigue, like a farmhand,
Mm-hmm.
they can be a good candidate for Adrenaline because like it has the same effect as Relentless. The main issue
Yeah.
is you have to spend your fatigue that you could be using to swing your weapons with. But a lot of early
Sure.
game fights, you only need to adrenaline once or twice. Another mistake, this is more of a very new player mistake, is you take adrenaline and then you click it every single turn. Nope, never ever do
Yeah.
that. Adrenaline, you use some fights, I don't use at all. That's fine. But other
Mm-hmm.
fights, you might use once, maybe twice. That's about it. It's very unlikely you have the fatigue to use it 3 times. But using it once or twice can already be very, very clutch. Just to make sure you go ahead of a certain enemy and you attack it quick. You want to use it like Relentless, where you wait, attack this turn,
Mm-hmm.
then Adrenaline immediately attack this turn. Should be able to kill it or at least severely damage it. Uh, it can often be good at the when you're starting a fight, you might want to engage and don't actually use adrenaline right away. Like you want to
Mm-hmm.
see how the fight develops, and you want to use adrenaline when you can actually make a decisive difference. Like that adrenaline is going to get you a kill, or set up some sort of combo, like a hammer to strip off armor. Or something. You don't want to just engage adrenaline for no reason, and then you've attacked a bunch and the enemy is still there and your adrenaline didn't actually accomplish anything. It needs to like do something, whether it's killing someone or
Yeah.
setting up an attack. Um, there are some other slightly less obvious uses for it, mostly involving like trying to zone certain like enemy ranged, hexen. Sometimes, like I think I made an adrenaline character with mace, go ahead of necro savants and stun them like on the early
Mm-hmm.
turns. A couple more niche situations like that, but um, I mean that one clutch turn could be all you need. I just don't want to do it on most of my bros, only one or two, because the cost is extremely high. It's the fatigue, and you're down a perk, and it
Yeah.
doesn't. Unlike like Relentless, it doesn't like um you can't get the consistent effect. It's just like once per battle per brother, basically. So I just like it on maybe one or two early game, and then maybe like two or three late game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think I have a couple more use cases for it. I think my favorite one is if you find a brother you early game that you want to turn into a fatigue neutral. You can go 9 lives or 9 lives adrenaline pathfinder. You can play him kind of like a relentless guy. Instead of playing him like a defense brother, like fatigue neutrals want to tank and have underdog and armor. You don't have that stuff until late game. You play him in safe positions and use that double turn from adrenaline with a two-hander. You can generate a lot of value there. And then the fatigue neutral with the late game. In the late game, you need to level fatigue a couple times. So it synergizes really well. I think I have one of these builds here to show. Where'd he go? This guy, right? So he looks like this. If they don't have any stars in melee attack, because you're skipping once, you should build a level fatigue. Or if you have like a high fatigue guy and you want to make him battle forged, whether you might not even call this a fatigue neutral. I still do. Um, if you want to use an orc weapon, right? This extra fatigue lets me use adrenaline once a fight. So basically, you get that double turn, usually end of turn two, beginning of turn three. You punch a hole in the enemy's formation, and kind of start snowballing the fight with that adrenaline. And then when you go into your legendary locations, you take a second wind potion and you can use an orc weapon with that extra fatigue. You kind of generate value in different ways from that fatigue. The early game, you play as damage, extra tactical options late game with the adren, and then legendaries, you get a big damage boost from the being able to use those orc weapons. So yeah, I think that's a good position for adrenaline. Chasing down fleeing enemies, net you a little more experience in loot. Uh, you like blowing up caravans really fast in Northern Raiders or Lone Wolf. But yeah, a lot of good uses for adrenaline there. I agree.
All right.
Um,
I'm just
what do
looking
we
to.
think is next in the B tier?
Yeah, I'm just looking through the rest. Well, this is interesting. So, your positioning of headhunt, not headhunter, executioner, and then headhunter, quite high in the B tier. I am curious about that. I want to hear your thoughts
I didn't
on.
put them in order. Yeah, I didn't put them in order as well. I just
Oh,
threw them on there. Yeah, wouldn't put
okay,
I put it pretty low. Headhunter's much better than XE.
okay. I want to hear your thoughts on headhunter first.
So, if you take Headhunter on a two-handed flail, it's a way to patch melee attack. Because Headhunter, Flowmaster gives extra damage in headshot. You already have a pretty high, 40% chance to hit head. Increasing that to 65 or whatever the math turns out to be is really high value. It generates a lot more DPS, shortens your kill times. On this kind of build, obviously you don't have target selection with this. Uh, I also think that it enables like a flail duelist type build. I don't have an example of one. So let's use a flail and only use the high fatigue forced headshot lash attack every other attack. So basically, let's just skip recover on a flail duelist and still headshot every turn. Um, it's also a viable damage perk on Catals. It's worse than Exe and Catals. Uh, but as a 10th perk, if you don't need any defensive perks, I'm like High Rolled Viper, you could take Exe and Headhunter. And it's an okay damage perk on throwers. If you feel like you have already have a lot of flails, a lot of ways to hit the head, and you can manipulate that target selection with a thrower, you could work Headhunter in. So I feel like there's just a lot of ways in which it's good as a damage perk that it's worth taking. It's worth ranking pretty high. But it enables two really good patch builds. And that's why I think I rate these higher than different players, is it lets me use guys like this guy's level 13 with gifted. So without gifted, he had 73 melee attack ish. It lets me use this guy as a late game, clear monolith with brother. Without Headhunter, I don't think this build would really cut it. Do you think that ranking's too high, or do you think that is where it belongs?
Um, I remind me again, Headhunter, the secondary effect on the two-handed flails. How much more piercing does it do? I can just Google it.
It's a lot.
So, I'm googling that on
Additional
my
10%
screen.
armor pen. Yeah.
Let's see, tier 6. Oh gosh, this is too many ads. Doesn't say on the wiki, really?
I think there's additional damage already before mastery, and then I think even 10% armor pen.
Oh, it's a special effect of the two-handed flails. Headhunter doesn't
Correct.
add
Yeah.
anything except to buff the chance you can hit the head. One
Correct.
moment. I just want to look up the two. Okay, you know what?
You can shoot
I don't
one.
need.
Yeah.
I don't need to look
Mhm.
that up because I remember the Varangian Guard run. I had a character with a
Mhm.
two-handed mace. It was a good famed two-handed mace, and with Berserk and Headhunter, he was able to one-shot a Chosen with one two-handed flail
Mm.
attack. It was like truly sick two-handed flail. So you can't just
Yeah.
achieve that with any two-handed flail. But I remember that was one of the most satisfying things that have ever happened. That was one of my dreams, Battle Brothers, which was to one-shot a Chosen, and I did it, and it was incredible. In my latest run, on a whim, I decided to give Headhunter to everyone except tanks. Literally everybody had Headhunter. And it is so satisfying to see heads flying left and right. I don't know I can play Better Brothers without Headhunter on everyone anymore. Not because it's objectively the strongest, but because the animations are so incredible. I just have to do it. So if there's a tier list for how um, cinematic the perks are, and Hunter would be S plus. Just it's
Oh, for
so
sure.
beautiful to watch those head roll. I was thinking, um, like I was also thinking if there's some way to use Headhunter as a truly like a high skill perk, similar to some of the other ones we discussed, like Relentless. Because the theory is if you hit the head, hitting the head again, even on enemies with Ironbrow, is good because they don't have armor there. You want to hit the same
Yeah.
body part twice, and you might be able to actually kill enemies much quicker if you can consistently pull that off. But in practice, despite everybody having Headhunter, I have actually really struggled to identify those opportunities to like target select and double tap people in the head. I think you pretty much have to take quick hands on everybody and have a reach weapon. You just need the maximum target selection possible. And I did not take quick hands on like quick. So I really struggle with target selection. Even like my bowman with Headhunter, terrible build by the way, don't do it. This character should, in theory, have the most possible target selection you can have. But even that character really struggled to like actually target select correctly. And if that character can't do it, you're gonna struggle with like all your characters. A lot of the problems I found was just yeah, you would proc Headhunter on one person, but the next spreader you have doesn't have Headhunter. So I don't want to target a dude without the helmet anymore, even though I really should be to like try to focus them down. And it splits damage in a suboptimal way. I just kept trying to like
Yeah.
use the perk, and I have struggled to use it. But I don't know if it's because I'm just not like doing it right. But if there is a optimal way to use Headhunter where you can actually squeeze out more damage by target selecting, the skill ceiling is so high. Like I like to think I'm still pretty good at this game, and I can't do it right. So if there is a way to do it, it must be like even more skill and thought intensive. And it would probably turn every battle into like some sort of super puzzle that it would just exhaust you mentally, even if you could somehow make it work that um, from a game efficiency perspective, like a min max perspective, I don't think it's very good. Except maybe on throwers. It's quite good. I was able to pretty consistently double tap people.
I think with obviously flails, one-handed and two-handed is very good. Trying to use it on your whole team, like you were talking about, I think there's too many roles. There's too many parts that have to come together for it to be good. Trying to use it as like a team strategy with like quick hands and target selection. It sounds like a fun like challenge on the tie to try, but I mean, usually gonna have 25-30% chance for a headshot. You would need you need one brother to headshot, and a different brother to have an active headhunter buff in range. It's where the action economy works in Battle Brothers. Moving is so expensive for AP to move up and down to different targets. I feel like that's kind of takes it out of takes that strategy out of play.
Yeah, it is. It's just it's so hard to actually execute that in practice. That I think the flail use case makes sense, even though I technically haven't used any two-handed flails. And the throwing is pretty easy.
Yeah.
Like just hitting someone in the head, even if they have full armor, is absurdly good when you have duelists. So
And
you can't
Qatar
really,
as well.
yeah, and Catal, yeah, because you and
Yeah.
those weapons, the best damage weapon multiplies very well with a damage perk.
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh, there was one other thought oh, right. The last thought I had about Headhunter was I know is good for the two-handed flails, and you can get like the Orc Berserk flails pretty easily, and they are excellent damage weapons. But I
Mhm.
can't bring myself to use the Orc flail and the Orc axe, even though the Man Splitter, even though I know they're really good, is just look so ugly, man. Like I can't do it from a
Yeah.
fashion. It's just I care about the fashion too much, and brothers using those weapons, they just don't look beautiful. So I can't bring myself
Yeah.
to use it,
I
and
agree.
that lowers the perk in my mind, even though I acknowledge objectively those are good weapons and it does combo well, at least with flail.
Yeah. What would you put next on this list? I mean, Headhunter could be a couple down. I think
Yeah.
Headhunter is definitely above Axie and Battleforge. I think it's the top half or so of this. But
Okay.
we can move it around. What
I
would you put
might I might put like Battleforge up next, honestly, even though we put a trash Battleforge when we talk about Nimble, but it is objectively the if you have the super heavy famed armor or even like reasonable fame armor, it's pretty good. There is another reason, which is the Battleforge tanks are just with Enam are like
Yeah.
practically invincible, even with standard armor. And
Uh,
having those tanks are like just makes the game so much easier.
Here's my thoughts on Forge being I think bottom of B tier is actually kind of a high ranking for it. This is not a ranking of using the Battleforge guy. It's a ranking of what the effect of the perk does compared to other perks.
Oh, okay, okay. I gotcha. I
So
gotcha. I understand.
you could make a Battleforge tank and take
No battle
Fortified
forge.
Mind or Brawny instead, and you'd barely notice a difference.
Yeah. Battle for you're absolutely correct. Okay. Heavy armor by itself is already extremely good. And in a
Exactly.
way, you don't even need Battle Forge for heavy armor to be amazing. And yes, this enhances it some. Decent, especially if you have Indom, especially if you have Indom.
Mhm.
But in a way, you don't really need that enhancement. Whereas you
Correct.
do need the Nimble enhancement.
Right. Like in most cases, let's say you had to choose between Gifted and Battleforge and a battle tank, and a Battleforged tank. In almost every case, Gifted is gonna be stronger than Battleforge. Battleforge might save you from a hit or a half a hit in most situations. The armor is good. The perk is just kind of icing on the cake. You basically always want it, but it's really not. It's not nearly as good as people think it is.
Maybe a lot of folks' perception is all the way back from the original days, like before any of the expansions.
Mm-hmm.
Battleforge, it didn't have the effect where if your armor goes lower, your Battleforge effect went lower. It was the same damage reduction no matter how low
Yeah,
your armor was, and then it was busted broken.
Braun was
Oh,
better, and nothing attacked HP, so you didn't need to level HP at all. So Battleforge was better because of that. Yeah, with where it is now and how fast you can play the game now with Retinue and Adaptation actually got buffed
from
not
8
that
to
long ago.
10%. Yeah, not that long ago. I think I
You play a lot faster.
want to say it's the Burning Deserts when it happened.
Yeah. And Nine Lives has gotten 3 buffs in the last few years.
But
Like
yes.
these early game perks getting better, Fearsome getting better, Retinue being added, things that make it easier to snowball, keep making Battleforge weaker.
Okay, I could. Uh, uh, your reasoning is sound. Um, just to reiterate to viewers, heavy armor by itself is already extremely good. Like, we're not dissing heavy armor. Heavy armor is amazing, but the enhancement, you rarely need the battle forge enhancement for heavy armor to be good. Like, you could put a nimble guy in heavy armor for certain fights, and it would be amazing still.
Almost more of like a tool saving perk than anything else.
My thing switched to a 1 minute ad though, so how do you just where do you think the next perk should be in your list?
I would actually put Flail Mastery here. Maybe that's wrong. We can move it, but here's my thoughts: is Flail is a patch weapon, right? We're able to make fatigue neutrals out of guys with 72, 73 native attack because most of the enemies you fight have shields, guys. When you're talking goblins, humans, uh, nobles, brigands, conscripts, nomads, ancient dead, even a couple normal undead. You fight so many things that have shields. A couple readers will have them in thralls. That it's like 15 attack. That's a massive, especially in the mid game power spike. Same thing with the one-handed flail. It's basically enabling you to use weaker brothers to beat hard fights. That doesn't work in every fight. You don't have to, when you're fighting spiders, you can still switch to a spear or sword. I think flail is appropriate because it does something really unique in terms of helping you snowball without great brothers. And maybe this is too high. Maybe I'm overselling it. But I think the 200 flail has gotten buffed so many times. And obviously, it's almost a pair with Headhunter, right? Flamasty and Headhunter. As they both those perks have been buffed. I think that they're high B tier perks now.
Well, that's interesting. Might I ask, when you use flail, do you use it mostly with the orc flail, or what kind of flails are you using it with?
I'll use the Noble Flail and I'll actually buy it pretty early. It's like 1700. If you want to drop 1700 like day 20 to get plus 15 attack versus every brigand and goblin for the rest of the game, that's pretty good. And then again with Headhunter, it's actually I think against shielded enemies, it's best in slot DPS until about 115 attack. Then Flowmastering Headhunter against non-shield enemies is a little worse than something like just having a great axe. But that's fine. Like it's basically you're patching a weak stat and buying a cheap budget, discount tier 3 weapon. Um, Workflow is only if I have spare fatigue and I'm going to use the second wind potion. That's for like a legendary location. You obviously don't need the workflow for Goblin City because you one shot everything with the noble foil anyways.
Okay, that is very interesting. I have never tried that, so I don't watch enough videos anymore to know how effective that is. It sounds like it is quite effective. Um, I can't properly evaluate Flail Expert because the last time I made not like the person with the super busted fame flail, but just a regular flail. I can't remember. It was like 2 playthroughs ago or something like that. I had it was just a flail duelist. He had flail and duelist. It was pretty fun. But I
Yeah.
didn't feel it was OP or anything. So
Yeah.
my
Douglas isn't great, but it's a build to use a specific a brother has a specific strength and a specific weakness to make him fine damage brother.
I don't think I can properly evaluate flail mastery, so I will defer to your opinion on that, and maybe I need to try out the noble two-handed flail some more.
I'd try buying like one or two kind of early, like when you're considering buying retinue, like 15 to 25 in there somewhere. See if you could pick one up and see what it does for you. I think you'll be impressed.
Okay, I usually the early game weapons I like to buy are the two-handed hammers and the two-handed maces. If I see the
Yeah.
the high tier ones, obviously the highest tier ones, but I should try the flail if I see one.
And that new legendary is a 200 flail as well, so that's kind of more to speak to Flowmaster being kind of high. You can get that pretty early. Like I don't think it's that hard of a fight.
I heard about it. I've not actually even done it yet, but I've heard
Yeah,
about this super flail, and maybe I was wondering maybe that was the main influence, but no, it sounds like minor consideration.
yeah, agreed. What would you put next then?
Okay, well, just looking through this list, I'm not sure. I like the axe mastery. I think this could be a good place for it. It is,
Mhm.
well, I think it's pretty simple. It's because axes are the best generic two-handed weapons in the game.
Yeah.
Combos with Fearsome, both hits head and the body would proc Fearsome, great damage against armor, against hit points. Very few things not that you don't like about axes. I guess there's no accuracy buff. That's maybe the only negative, but everything else on the axe is outstanding.
Yeah.
The only counter argument you could have is on some brothers, in fact, many brothers, you don't even really need mastery axes. Like they're good
Yeah.
without
Agree with
mastery.
that too.
But for fatigue neutrals, which you probably want your axe, you pretty much need it to make sure you can always move and hit. So just for that value alone, you can take it. I don't know there's too many uses for one-handed axe in mastery. It's not a thing.
Not that was famed. Yeah, it's probably
Uh,
the worst one-handed weapon.
yeah, I mean, it's fun as an axe duelist. I always wanted to make one, not because they're good, because like the sergeants, the noble army sergeants with the duelist axe,
Mhm.
they look so fun. So
They
it's
do.
terrible.
It's fun to occasionally get those giga headshots where you're like, I think I had a huge brute axe to us with an orc axe. And I farmed drunkard for him. I think he one shot an orc warrior with a head chopper.
Oh man, that sounds like another dream, but really,
Yeah, it was
it's
great.
because of the two-handed weapons. That's why this is here, and
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
that's reasonable.
Okay. The lone wolf I really like on tanks. I don't think it's worth taking on the lone wolf in a real run. I think it just makes tanks a lot stronger. And maybe this is too high because it's like a one or maybe two of per run. What do you think lone wolf should be on this? I think it does belong on B because it's a huge power spike. Just for the audience, it doesn't just cover your base defense. It also multiplies the defense from your shield and shield mastery. You're gonna get like 7 or 8 defense from this on a tank late game, and that's massive. On top of 10, 12 resolve, and that's a pretty big power spike. But where on this B tier list would you put it?
I think that this is where like our play styles are somewhat different, and I acknowledge the mathematical power of Lone Wolf. And I do want to make at least one Lone Wolf Battleforge tank. Uh, but I don't think I've ever actually made more than one ever in any run in 2,200 hours. Not,
Okay.
I, well, this might actually because I think it is correct. Like, I acknowledge they're very good tanks, and I could almost certainly make effective use of two Lone Wolf Battleforge tanks. But my second tank, I greatly value less raw tanking and more manipulation or controlling some way. On this second tank, I
Mhm,
pretty much always want taunt, probably rotate as
mhm,
well.
okay.
Specifically just for this second tank, so I have additional tactical options. I send the one lone wolf tank out to do his thing, and then the secondary tank sort of stays with the main group, and he doesn't have to do as good of a job. He doesn't have to tank 4 chosen. Like he can tank 3 chosen and do some sort of weird manipulation when I need that to happen. So that's why I don't value Lone Wolf as high, and I would put it
Okay.
personally like. See, this is another almost like Indomitable in my mind, like S tier for that one tank, and then I would
Yeah.
never take out anyone else. So I would
Get
put
a
it
second tank,
like,
even when I take one from the second tank, oftentimes I don't use it.
but it's there in
So I
case you need it.
it's there when I want to use it. Yeah. Usually I have one that will be lone wolf and the other maybe in line or closer to my team. Yeah, so it's there when I feel like I need it or the terrain. I feel feel like I don't necessarily want to send him off without Lone Wolf. If he's with my team, I think I'm fine playing him with 9 perks.
Interesting. So I just have a different thought process, which is I would never
Mhm.
send this tank off anyway, so I might as well take something else.
Yeah,
That's how
that's
I think
valid.
about it.
This could definitely lower as like a 1 or like we agree it's at least a 1 of. For me, it's usually a 2 of, or I'd say 50-50. I take it 1.5 times per run. So I think lower in the B tier is probably fine.
Yeah,
I'm
this
above
is
Battle Forge.
one of those perks that I think tier lists can't capture super well. Like it's OP on the one
Yeah,
character, and then it's kind of like then it becomes like a play style. Like I think
yeah,
I can't imagine an expert who wouldn't say like at least one wolf tank is objectively extremely strong. Like everybody knows Monolith, right? One wolf tank, like just it's not just
hmm
that fight. It's like literally every single fight you can use it. And
yeah,
I would agree on pretty much every single fight except goblins, actually. But you don't need tanks. Like you'll be fine against goblins anyway. Um, on every other fight, you could use lone wolf tanks, but I just prefer like a more utility tank. So this is where the play
yeah,
style comes in, and it's very hard to like rank that second lone wolf pick. I think.
yeah. I guess replace it with Rally then, if that's kind of.
Well, I
I
mean,
would say so.
since this is ultimately your tier list, I think on these perks where it's like a playstyle thing, you should place it where you feel it is, because like my playstyle is like slightly different than yours, and I
Yeah,
don't
for
know this
sure.
is one where we can actually have a consensus, which is good. We should have some differences.
Yeah, I'm trying to make one that doesn't just reflect my play style. Like for me, spears are probably B, but I'm recognizing for other players they're A. And so I'm trying to kind of like split the difference. So for me, it'd be about here. For you, it'd be a C tier perk then, right? No, or like a
Yeah,
low B, right?
I would just pick it one time on one character, and that's it. That's
I think that's a B if you always want on one character.
oh, okay, all right, very good. Then let's do a B.
We can put that with a rally.
Yes, why don't we
That would
just
probably
cover
go with
Rally
rally.
next? Rally and Lone Wolf in my brain are like literally the exact same thing. You want
Yeah,
one for every company, period, and I would never take more than one. And you need one Rally. There are certain fights you cannot do safely without Rally. Geist being the main example, but you have other ones like anything that attacks resolve. So Orc Warlords can sometimes cause problems with their roar. Just any fights with lots of enemies, they can sometimes proc the morale checks by moving onto your brothers, and that's nasty. Ancient Dead has a lot of fearsome. They're almost certainly going to lower your resolve when a couple times
mhm.
in a fight when they hit. So you really do need rally. Those probably the main thing. I think the
Yeah, emergency button, right?
yeah, emergency button, and there are some fights you have to have it, or you can't safely do them, no matter how strong your company is. Guys being the primary example. If you don't have it, you fail a couple RNG rows. The whole thing is just going to cascade out of control. And so
Exactly.
without rally, like I don't fight guys without rally. I don't even fight one guys with like an early game company without rally. Period. I just consider it too RNG based, and I hate RNG in Battle Bros. Despite the game being every single thing is a dice roll. But I try to minimize it as much as possible. Aggression, by
Yeah,
the way, viewers, aggression is how you actually minimize RNG.
agreed. I would fight one Geist if I had like a decently high melee attack guy with a malicious spear and adrenaline. But I would need to have another plan. One or two Geists I would fight without rally. But yeah, in general, like a normal size fight with Geist, yeah. Rally provides a lot of protection across the course of a run. I mean, kind of like a weaker 9 lives. Like you might only rally twice an entire run, but like you might have gotten wiped if you didn't have rally then. So
Yeah, yeah, I think you just have to have rally, so that's a great place for it. I think we can move on to the next one that you want to talk
then
about.
we got this little group we haven't recovered yet. I mean, I could just slide these all
Okay.
together.
Yeah,
We
why
should-
don't we? This is getting into tricky territory of ranking these. Perhaps let's do recover next because this one is kind of like the rally lone wolf situation, which is I have to take it on the Indom tank because otherwise you can't Indom enough.
Mhm.
And I sometimes take it on some other characters. I sometimes try to go for the Berserk cover combo. It's I know it's not great, but it's just something
Yeah, I
satisfying about
know.
clicking those buttons, man. There's something satisfying about clicking the button, even
Yeah.
though my brain knows it's not actually good. A more
The Joker
realistic,
cover is not good.
yeah, it's
Yeah, it's
not
not
it's
good.
not good, but I just want to click the button, man. And I made my super character have that combo in my run. I don't think it's actually the right thing. Probably should have picked gifted. Anyway, so tanks obviously Indom tanks you really do need it. But the other actual objective use case is something like a stun bot with
Mhm.
Mace
Yeah,
Expert.
agreed.
They do burn rooter fatigue, and their one job is to crowd control people. So once they're out of fatigue, they can't even like stun once. Like they literally do nothing. The little mace bomb for 30 damage or whatever is like completely irrelevant to the fight. You might as well pass your turn and recover because they're not doing anything otherwise.
Yeah.
So that's probably the only other character who objectively needs recover. I can't actually think of anyone else that where it's like correct unless you want to do like the again the fun clicking buttons with berserk recover, but there's no like objective use case I can think of for recover out of those two.
Yeah, I think that covers it. I mean, you could even do an in-down tank without recovery. It's pretty risky though. I wouldn't want to. But yeah, I think Unitsu's job is to take up space. So tanks, stun bots. You're still taking up space when during your pass turn with recover. You're not losing a lot. Yeah, your in-down is down for one turn, and that's dangerous. You're not attacking or stunning with that stun bot for a turn, and that's lost opportunity. You're still controlling them because the only target they can attack is the tank of the stun bot, right? You shouldn't
Yeah,
have to be recovering when other enemies are in that melee. And that's fine. I think in general, if you're pushing recover on a damage brother, you
you've
screwed
made a
up,
mistake. Yeah.
right?
The tank and the sunbot, the thing is, it's the opportunity cost, right? Your other option is as a tank to basic stab with your spear or dagger and to do your 30 was like 35 to 55, right? Is a tier 3 mace, something like that. Like
Mhm.
it's just those actions don't really do anything. So you might as well take
Yeah,
the other
agreed.
thing that quote unquote doesn't do anything, recover, because at least the turn after that you can do something.
Correct. So why I'm saying, I guess we should cover kind of the two noob traps that we kind of glossed over. So the first is if damage brother needs recover, it's because you did something wrong. What we mean by this is when you get attacked, you lose fatigue. If you dodge it, you lose a little bit of fatigue. If you get hit, you lose a lot of fatigue. So if you're playing correctly, almost all the enemy's attacks are directed at your defense type brothers, or like you're minimizing the amount of times you're getting attacked based on positioning and tricks, using stuns and nets, spear walls, pushes, terrain to control the battlefield, and not let the enemy attack your damage brothers. They should have fatigue that's pretty high. The second is when using weapon combos, most of your damage is going towards killing stuff, right? You're not just like wildly filling your weapon. You're not sitting in line. You've taken damage perks like fast adaptation, fearsome. So when you hit, when you swing, you're consistently hitting, and you're clearing fights quickly using fearsome or whatever the other tricks you have. Most fights only last 4 turns, like one turn's repositioning, like turn one. Then turn 2 through 5, like that's pretty much it for every non-legendary fight. With good positioning, Zerk and Frenzy actually get pretty low value. The next thought of trying to combo Zerk and Recover is like this is just full meme, guys.
Yeah,
What
but
you're
it's
doing
so
is you're punishing.
satisfying to
Yeah,
click the button even though it's bad.
You've taken 3 perks. You can swing your weapon once and then refill your stamina. That's not good. Imagine if you took instead like Backstabber, Axie Headhunter. You'd kill stuff way faster than having to like Zerk recover. Even if for some reason the like Zerk is good on the brother, he's like has insane crazy fatigue and like whatever. You're trading away 9 damage boosted fatigue, assuming you would have like Zerk and Frenzy recover, or 9 damage boosted AP. Those AP with Frenzy active are not worth 9 AP. They're worth like 12 AP, right? Because you have a big damage boost. You're trading that away, potentially killing an enemy this turn, or repositioning to attack an enemy with Frenzy up next turn to refill your stamina bar, which shouldn't have been low in the first place. So this is not a thing you're going to see a lot of good players doing outside of like we're memeing for fun.
I will say in recovers defense on DPS characters, there might be one type of character where there's at least some possible value in some cases for recover. And I'm thinking specifically of a cleaver bro with a whip in the pocket. And there have actually been some battles where I clicked recover and it actually boosted the damage in the long run. But those situations are so rare. Like one was Lindworms, because I'm just whipping away from a distance. And so, you recover the Lindworms, they have so much hit points. I can keep whipping. But the thing is, even in that situation, it doesn't like actually matter. The most critical thing about Lindworms is to reduce their numbers from like 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever down to a more manageable number. By the time I click recover, there's only like 1 or 2 Lindworms left. So it doesn't matter. I've won at that point. But it
Yeah,
did
recover. Yeah,
it like boost damage, except it did it when it didn't matter. One case where it does have a slight actual utility effect, and this is again super niche, and you don't need to do it to be successful in the game. Was there are certain situations where you need to psycho control, like stun and then whip, like disarm.
Yeah.
The example I was specifically thinking of was there was a Barbarian King champion who I wanted to like dagger for his armor. But I mean, if I'm daggering a Barbarian King champion, not even a regular Barbarian King champion, I've like crushed the game so hard. What does it matter? I don't even need his armor. Like I have better,
Yeah.
And it's just a pure meme thing. But it did actually like do something in the sense that I got to say that I daggered a Barbarian King champion, but it's completely irrelevant to actually succeeding at the game.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Is most of the times when you do push the button, it already didn't matter. So I think that's probably a fine place for recover. I think there's use cases.
All right. Oh, it's
I
another
mean, the
super
list
long
doesn't have
ad
to be
on my
perfect.
part.
Yeah, the list doesn't have to be perfect. So next, I guess I can start covering anticipation.
Oh,
When you
how
understand
interesting.
how AI works, anticipation is really powerful. That's an if though. So the way the AI works is it targets based on the number of brothers in a cluster. If you put one brother kind of in the front and center of a cluster, will always get targeted by the enemy AI range. With good positioning, 1 or 2 anticipation brothers can actually effectively neuter for the first like 2-3 turns an enemy range team. This makes fights like uphill brigand camps, goblins, nomads, even sometimes noble armies much less scary. So this is good on things like fatigue neutrals. It can be good on your banner. If you have a banner that can't do anything, all you guys is resolve. Even at like 15 or 20 range defense, you could take anticipation, and your banner can have 2 jobs: to wave the flag and to be a ranged tank. So there's a lot of cool tricks you can do with anticipation. And even if you just take it as a value perk, like sometimes in a random fatigue neutral, I'll just take it for 10 range defense. Sometimes that 10th perk is not very valuable. So I think there's a lot of cool tricks you can use. And a lot of these fights, even maybe you didn't need anticipation to win. You need anticipation to win and then be able to take the next fight cleanly. So it helps you get clean results in a lot of those like mid-game ranged heavy fights that can just drain your resources. You go into some Gawain camp on day 50 and you beat it, but you take a couple injuries, all of your armor's trashed, you can't fight for a day and a half. That fight wasn't worth it. And this makes those fights worth it. And again, this goes down in value pretty quickly. So you can use like a tank with a kite shield for the same job. But being able to have a damage brother get in there with this perk, I think that's a pretty reasonable ranking for it. Did you move it somewhere else, Deductor?
Oh, quite interesting. Now, I'm going to sound a lot like Milhouse from The Simpsons, and I'm sure I'm going to get flamed for this, but I like the anticipation before it was cool. Uh, if you
Okay.
watch my videos from like 4 or 5 years ago, when pretty much everybody agreed anticipation was complete garbage and nobody would ever pick it because we didn't understand how the AI worked, I would still take anticipation, and
Me too.
but um, I I didn't actually truly understand what I was doing. I got the same result, but I didn't understand why the AI did it. I had a so what I did was I took anticipation specifically on my range brothers, like a
Mhm.
thrower slash bow, and I would put some. I want to say maybe I did do a non-range brother once or twice, but it's almost always a range brother. And I would level the range defense. I would put them right in the middle of my company and I gave them super light armor. I always thought the AI targeted that brother because of the light armor. I thought it was trying to go for kill shots, but I was wrong. It's because they just want to target the center. And if anybody ever
Mhm.
doubts that, I had made a video in my Varangian Gar series. I even like I didn't explain it. Maybe that series was so fun when I didn't explain anything. I just narrated what happened. It was a lot of fun for me personally, but I knew that was what I was doing. I put a super. I had a famed kite shield with extra range defense. I put a battle forge tank with super heavy armor in the middle of my formation with that kite shield, and I even made the thumbnail like that character with the kite shield. I just didn't explain the video why I did that, and you could see all the nomads shooting all their arrows at that character, even though he was the most unkillable character, and it was because he was smack dab in the middle of the. So that's how you abuse anticipation.
Yeah. Like, interesting trivia. So the old AI targeting didn't work. The range AI had a bug in it, and they would shoot they would shoot a random brother instead of the brother they were supposed to.
Oh, really? When
Bug
was
was fixed
that
like
fixed?
yeah. I think it was fixed sometime after Blazing Deserts was released. It was early in Blazing Deserts it was fixed. I used to take anticipation too. I think we probably took it on our co-op run, a couple guys too. But yeah, it's much better now because the AI is actually works, and so now that it works, we can predict it and control it. Before it actually was pretty much just random whatever they shot.
Okay, interesting. So I must have done it on my range brothers, uh, and I would imagine we did it in our co-op run as well. I don't remember, but I would have advocated for it. I don't. I feel like when we did our run, we didn't actually know how the AI worked. I could be wrong. You might have known, but I
Yeah,
didn't.
that I think was either before the patch or before we knew about it. One of the two. It's probably
Okay,
adapt.
I would have like I feel like it was before I knew, and I would have advocated for anticipation with the range brother, but I would have also advocated for giving them light armor because that's why I thought the AI was targeting them. But I was
Mhm.
wrong about that. And still, like the end result, the bottom line is the same. It's exactly why what you said, Sins, which is you put your characters with anticipation and some range defense in the middle of your formation. Or banner is a great example because the AI loves targeting banners as well.
Mhm.
So and plus they're not doing anything anyway. You can give them a kite shield for a little extra defense as needed, or they can even hold the banner. It depends on the situation, and then just have them have that brother do something. I like it on range brothers because you level range attack, you level fatigue. What else do you level, right? Might as well level range defense
Yeah.
if you get some good rolls. Melee attack, you should probably leave that. But some range defense, like for that utility, is so useful to minimize the damage that you take. Like makes goblins very low stress to battle. They don't really
Yeah.
do much to you, and you just get free kills. Um,
Yeah, so we comfortable with like the ranking here about the middle of B with anticipation?
so this is another one where I almost feel like it's with the recover, rally, lone wolf situation where it's like you want one, maybe two, but you don't really want too much more than that. So I would actually group it with that bunch, except I would put it to the left of recover because I would use it
I
more.
think I like that. Yeah, I like that. I agree with you. So Steelbrow, people were surprised with how low I rated Steelbrow. And that's because, I was a big advocate. Before I really pushed for it, no one was taking it. I think Steelbrow is really good under very narrow circumstances. So Steelbrow, you never want to take it on Nimble guys, unless you're role playing. We're talking about like optimizing, or almost never take it on Nimble guys. Really need on Nimble Forge. You're taking it specific. You don't need it on guys with Indom. You don't need it on Damage Brothers. So what's left is specifically Battleforge fatigue neutrals. And then we're taking it usually instead of 9 lives. But 9 lives is better before we get armor. 9 lives is better at keeping units alive. Steelbrow is specifically for fatigue neutrals when we're worried about them getting injured. So we're worried about the injury snowballing into a death in a fight or causing tempo loss. So we've decided to take the defensive perk that actually provides less survivability, but more flexibility and more campaign level bonuses. So I think recommendation for other players that aren't me, I would say 9 lives is generally better than Steelbrow. My personal preference for Steelbrow is like I'm pretty picky about the kind of bros that turn to fatigue neutrals. I don't think I've lost a fatigue neutral in a non-challenge run ever. So I don't think uh just for the way I play that I don't think the brow is better than 9 lives, but I think for general usage, brow is probably picked more than it should be. What do you think, Deductor?
But this is where I think it's a playstyle difference. I pretty much take Steelbrow for the memes or the role play.
Yeah.
Uh, it's like you said on fatigue neutrals, you pretty much need it. Or I guess you could go with 9 lives. Was I like fatigue neutral better, or on fatigue neutral better. I think your positioning for the perk was fine because you use more fatigue neutral than I do, so
Mhm.
you should keep it where you are. And because the community, like most people, are using fatigue neutrals. I'm like one of the few
Yeah.
who doesn't really do it. So if we want this to reflect what community thinks, it should probably be in the middle of B, specifically for fatigue neutral. I agree with all the statements you said. Like it's not actually good on Nimble. You don't need it, and on damage dealer,
Yeah.
you definitely don't need this. So what's and Indom, you definitely don't need this. So what's left? Yeah, Battle Forge. However, I will
Yeah.
say, um, as a meme on Nimble, it is so satisfying. Nothing. That's not true. The most satisfying thing is chopping heads off of Headhunter. The second most satisfying thing is having a Nimble brother getting shot 5 times in the head with a crossbow. I'm like, please, may I have another? AI is not headshotting me enough. There's nothing more satisfying than that, except chopping heads.
I think the reason why, I mean, I actually take it on about half of my fatigue neutrals, like one or two brothers a run. If I have to use that fatigue neutral before I have good armor, I'm going to take 9 lives instead of brown. If I'm trying to make do with that fatigue neutral and like nomad leader armor and like 210 hat, I'm probably going to take 9 lives. 9 lives again, it's as long as you have a way to bail that unit out in the next like turn or two, 9 lives is generally better. I think it's like a list of the way experts look at the game. I actually think I use Brow too much. But I think the bottom of B is I'm fine with there. I think that's reasonable. Like if someone told me to do a no steel brow challenge run, I would just take 9 lives and I would take a couple more injuries in a run, and that wouldn't be that big of a deal.
Oh, that's true. That's true. You could easily sub out Steelbrow or 9 lives in place of Steelbrow. Probably be
Yeah, that's
better.
kind of yeah, because like there's a comparable that's generally better. So like even though I like Brow, we have to kind of lower where it is there. What do you think about crossbow and bags? Where do you want to rank these two?
Okay. These are all quite interesting. Crossbow, of course, also affects guns, and you pretty much need crossbow mastery to even use guns. Otherwise, you can't even like consistently reload and shoot. Guns are very powerful. Um, However, I feel like by the time you have guns, you should be strong enough where you don't actually need it. And
Hmm.
in some ways, it's a bit of a win harder, but that's not really 100% true. There are some fights where guns are, especially when you combo it with Fearsome, quite
Hmm.
good. Larger camps chosen. I don't actually like it against the center army. They're too like tanky. They're too like range
Okay.
tanky. But in theory, if you hit, it's great. Uh,
Yeah.
so there are some fights where guns truly do shine. Crossbows, of course, are I like them as a range weapons. I think they're solid. Um, Again, usually one shot goblins, especially with mastery with
Mhm.
them, and that's a big deal. It just offens up enemies like nothing wrong with a range character of both crossbow and throwing mastery. You pepper them with a couple of crossbow bolts, or even just a one bolt, and then you chuck javelins at them. It's I think the position of where it is good. The effect is very good. Plus 20% armor pen, plus the fatigue reduction.
Yeah.
So it makes a noticeable difference. It's
Hmm.
just um I don't know. It doesn't like change anything except against goblins. That the it really
Yeah.
makes you one shot the goblins a lot more.
They can make you injure chosen, which is worth like kind of something like fatigue savings if you're not loving a lot of fatigue. Um, I have a pro and a con to add there is the goblin crossbow to reposition enemies can be very powerful. But it's a regular perk, not the weapon. So as Deductor said, you don't need mastery to do that. That's a spiked impaler. And kind of the con for guns is usually by the time you have the money and enough stats to get value out of guns, you're too strong to fight the south. So you're taking a big detour in order to buy like 4 guns for your backliners. Um, and maybe the power spike isn't worth the detour. Like if you could just like mail order guns while you're, killing chosen in the north on day 62, yeah, that would be a lot better. But it's a big trip south to buy them, and that to me lowers the value of guns into somewhere around here-ish.
All right, so next bags and belts. Now this one I do take it quite a bit on my
Yeah,
runs. So maybe that one should be higher just by how often I pick
so
it.
too. Somewhere
Uh
in top third of B, like above the
yeah.
weapon masters, I think.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Many
Or after
use
Headhunter.
maybe even in front of Headhunter, I feel like I take it quite a
Oh
bit.
yeah.
I would probably even put it in front of Adrenaline. I know it's so weird. It's never my first pick.
You
In
bet.
fact, it's never ever my first pick. Like because it's a tier 1 perk. It's usually somewhere, I don't know, between levels 5 to 8 or 9, something like that. Primary use case is for throwers. They have just a
Hmm.
wide variety of options, whether it's more throwing weapons, more range weapons, some melee weapons, nets, bombs,
Hmm.
some uses. I like banners with throwing because banners often don't do too much. So with throwing, they can become utility bots with bombs and nets.
Hmm.
Also makes throwing banners much more doable.
Yeah.
Um, Even I sometimes even will take this on characters like Spearmint, so they have just a
Hmm.
full kit of all sorts of shenanigans and options. Like I'll put like a pole hammer, for example, or bill hook, two-handed hammer, uh, nets, potions, or the smoke bomb, not potions. You don't use them in combat anymore. Like
Mhm.
those, it just opens up a lot of options on my utility brothers. And of course, there is the classic lone wolf sins tank that you taught me how to use this. You take bags and belts on your tank, yeah, putting 4 the par shields, and you scent them and let the chosen break shields all day. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of good uses for it. Another notable thing is it saves fatigue. You can put pocket shields on throwers. So one cool trick to do is you can actually, let's say you're fighting Necrosvants, and the Necrosvant jumps on one of your throwers. You can take out a heater shield and shield wall, and they'll pick a different target. So you can just make them bounce all over the battlefield by swapping shields around. So saving fatigue and just giving yourself a bag of tricks can be really powerful. Like I said, throwers, tanks, um, Trash Brothers are a utility too. I've gone to Monolith with like a level 7 random Dayteller with no stats, and then you just throw potions. So there's, and then obviously like mules as well. If you want to like carry more items, you can get a beggar, or cripple, indebted with bags and just carry more stuff. Um, yeah, I think that's a good position. I agree with that.
All right. So, moving on,
I
we
do
already
have to get I do have to get going though. Can we maybe connect in a couple days and find out when do the next half? I thought this was going to be like 2 to 3 hours, but we're already like three and a half.
I
So
know, me too. I thought it would be sooner as well. Yes. And this is about half the perks, so this is an excellent stopping point.
yeah,
Yeah. Why don't I text you to arrange the next session? But otherwise, yeah, thank you everyone
yeah,
for listening. Thank you so much, Sins, for hosting this perk discussion.
yeah. Thanks for coming to Doctor, and then I'll get this list saved, and then I'll post it again on Reddit, and I'll link your video and mine, and we can maybe have some questions, and we can start with Q&A tomorrow, or not tomorrow. Next time we can get together and finish up the perk tier list.
All right, bye bye, everyone.
Take care.